Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the after show. It is Cinco de Mayo today, so congratulations for everyone who celebrates. I wore my Canelo shirt in preparation for the weekend as well. There's a big fight coming up. Canelo fighting Dimitri Bivol, the WBA champion at light heavyweight. That's going to be a very interesting fight, so we can start previewing that. I'm also going to have a watch party for that right after Archie's show on Saturday. They had the press conference today, so the fight week has already started. Canelo already won a belt at this weight division at 175, beating Sergey Kovalev, incidentally another Russian fighter. The argument at that time was that Kovalev was already shot, that he didn't have much left, that he was already twice beaten by Andre Ward, and he had come out from a very taxing fight with the young British fighter from East London, Anthony Yard, right before, only 7 weeks before, at any rate. So there were a lot of excuses, a lot of rationalizations after the fact. After that fight, Canelo came down and basically conquered the super middleweight division, 168, and in a way that wasn't done before, right? In the so-called four-belt era, there were no undisputed champions. In fact, I don't think, with super middleweight being a relatively new division, I don't think there were ever any undisputed champions at super middleweight. But Archive is in the chat, so he can correct me either from there or by jumping on. The link is there pinned. I know he is on vacation in Canada, so maybe he's busy. Maybe he's just enjoying himself a little too much. So I understand if he doesn't want to jump on. Corrado Galizia, he's already here. Love you, man. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate you. Archive again, Mark, welcome back to the channel. Yes, guys, so feel free to join the panel. I just ordered basically some chips and queso from my favorite place, and it just came in, so I'm gonna go pick that up. I know some people had very choice words for me for chewing gum a couple of streams ago, which fair point. But today I'm very hungry and I have good appetite, so I'm gonna eat on the stream with your permission. Give me a second. Hey.
Good evening. You can hear me better today, yes?
Perfect. Mark,
Yeah, I figured out the internet over here. So I used a different browser on the phone and I was able to like change the allow settings specifically. So I was able to do audio and so I was able to get it to go from my speaker phone to my actual headphones. That was
I,
the issue yesterday.
I had heard that about Canadian internet and how different it is from Irish internet. So I'm glad you got it figured out by now.
Yeah, their internet system is run through a maple syrup bottle and ours is run through a potato. So give me 1 second. I'll be right with you.
Thanks for sharing those stereotypes with us, Mark.
I apologize. I'll behave.
Okay. Well, Mark is actually a walking encyclopedia and a great mind on boxing. So it's really a great pleasure to have him on board today as we try to talk our way through Canelo versus Bivol.
So you would appreciate for me today to actually like be genuinely serious, not like with the YTBC where I troll 95% of the time, right? You'd actually like me to be genuine.
You can do whatever you want as long as you don't stereotype your own people.
I mean, you've said numerous times I have the right to do so.
But I mean, you have the right to do whatever you want, even on my channel. But that's just my preference.
Yeah. Okay. I won't. I won't point out obvious facts about Ireland anymore.
So, what do you think? What do you think about this fight? How do you envision it? How do you think it will unfold?
It's a weird one. Because when you're surrounded by people constantly talking about boxing, like with anything, there tends to be a null point of intrigue after a certain length of time of being mega focused on things, right? So people will start to get very creative with things, and that seems to be a continuous factor with people I talk with when it comes to Canelo fights, right? There's a stigma amongst boxing fans, a very harsh stigma, which I don't actually genuinely agree with at all. I troll about it, but I don't actually agree with it. I don't think most of I'll just be blunt, a lot of boxing fans think his fights are fixed. I don't. I don't think they're fixed fights. I think he is genuinely a world-class talent. I think he's got the rub of the green a couple of times. The first Golovkin fight and the Erislandy Lara fight. I thought he beat Trout comfortably. I thought the Lara fight should have been a draw. I thought the first Golovkin fight, Golovkin clearly won. But other than that, he has had a pretty clean slate. Maybe the Miguel Vasquez fight very early in his career. Very early in his career, you could make a case Miguel Vasquez beat him. But that's to be expected amongst two prospects very early on. The fight itself, we can talk about any type of social paradigms because they're very important in boxing in terms of politically. We can talk about Bivol being Russian and where Russia are being tolerated amongst the world landscape and how that may affect them on the cards because Canelo's got an ironclad chin. If you want to go down that route, we can.
Well, I appreciate you starting by really laying, sharing the lay of the land with people about the politics of boxing, because, of course, people sometimes on social media spin these tales of everything being fixed, and saying that the fights are not fixed does not necessarily mean, as you implied, there's no corruption in boxing, right? That there are not decisions and judges scorecards that are at the very least very fishy. And when it comes to Canelo's career, of course, you have pinpointed specific instances. As with any superstar boxer, as with anyone who brings in the fans and thus the money, he has been favored in a couple of decisions, and we can't deny that. I can't deny that as a fan of both Canelo and Triple G. I do think that, in an ideal world, Lara could have even been perhaps given a close decision, but I think the
Yes.
draw seems very fair. This is a very, this is a relatively early fight in Canelo's career, by the way. It must have been now 6-7 years ago, right?
Well, it was like 9 title fights in.
But and that also, by the way, all these opponents that we are counting, Austin Trout, Erislandy Lara, Floyd Mayweather, of course, which he clearly lost, but had, in fact...
He lost 11 rounds in that fight.
Right. But he had a card that gave him 6 rounds, right? And ruled
CJ
it.
Ross.
Yeah. CJ Ross actually ruled it a draw, so it ended up being a split decision.
Majority
decision rather than being a unanimous one, as it should have been. I counted the circumstances surrounding the Kovalev fight, but in each instance, we are counting, title fights against world-class fighters who had already proven their mettle elsewhere. So that in itself, I think, is a testament to the kind of career and track record that this guy has built. He has earned the respect, I think, by now.
Even if boxing fans were to get what they wanted and put a couple of losses on that record, let's say the 2 main ones they'd want to put there are the Golovkin fight, first one specifically, even though some of them will want the second one there too, but most of them would just want the first one. And the other one would be the Lara fight. They'd be the 2 fights they'd want out. Even if you did that, the man has caved out a Hall of Fame career. He's caved it out. It's already done, and he's still going, and he's going very strong. He's actually at the peak of his prime right now. This is the best he's ever been, which is frightening that he's already easy a Hall of Famer, and he's got like 8-9 championship fights still in him, I would reckon. I think he's got 3-4 really good years that he can like still be dominant. The thing is, though, Bivol is, in my opinion, right? It's all opinion because it's all eye test. I think he's the best boxer he's fought in terms of also being close to prime and physical levels since he's fought Gennady Golovkin.
And add to that, of course, that this time you have someone who is also physically bigger than he is, someone who belongs to that weight class, almost naturally.
Yeah.
So you have,
go ahead. Sorry.
So I think it's even different than facing Lara at 154 and facing Bivol, who is, maybe someone will get angry at me for saying this, but I think who is just as technically and proficient and fundamentally sound as Lara is.
But also more offensively minded as well at the same time, which goes underrated.
And has a bigger frame compared to Canelo. Let's remember again, some of the people who hated Gennady Golovkin, who on the record drew with Canelo and then lost one, trolled Triple G, trolled Golovkin by saying that he lost to a career junior middleweight, right? The career 154 pounder, because up until then, that was actually the first title fight that Canelo had in middleweight. Then he ended up fighting the other significant opponent in middleweight, who was Jacobs. Then, he had his title fight against Kovalev, and then he conquered 168. So you have, like you said, he basically is experiencing his prime at super middleweight now, and he seems to have also bulked up to, light heavyweight 175. It's going to be an interesting fight. He's used to being the smaller fighter for a while now.
Yeah,
and Bivol, even though he is naturally a light heavyweight and he has in his professional career at least always fought at that level, he's not the biggest and buffest 175 pounder either.
But do you know what's interesting about that?
Tell me.
The last person he fought who wasn't humongous at the weight, who wasn't considered big, was Golovkin. As hard. So Golovkin's not a big middleweight. He's an average size middleweight. Bivol is an average size light heavyweight. Kovalev, older, but a larger light heavyweight, especially on fight night. Danny Jacobs, a big middleweight. Caleb Platt, 6'1", big super middleweight. Callum Smith, big super middleweight. Billy Joe Saunders balloons up to 220 pounds. He's a fat fuck. He's actually quite big in terms of his frame. His frame was bigger than Nelo's.
Yeah, but I mean, Jacobs, whom he fought at 160, would balloon up to 190 pounds on fight nights, and then also was about to chase a title himself at 175 as recently as last year, right? So
absolutely. So these guys are all big at the weight. Bivol naturally fits the weight like Golovkin does, and there's a lot to be said about being natural to the weight, not massive weight cuts, because it means that you're able to perform at your best. It's purer for you. It's easier. It's like being closer to same day weigh-in kind of thing, but you also have the ability to be able to hydrate in a sense. So it's the natural weight you should be fighting at instead of ballooning down to rehydrate for size, to have size advantages. You're going for engines. You get engines, stamina, and that's something Bivol has in spades. At the end of a 12-round fight, he always looks like he's just had a 2-minute jog. Always, every single time.
That's a great observation, because when you look at a lot of Canelo's stoppages, a lot of Canelo's recent fights and important wins, they're late round knockouts, and it's about the accumulation of punches, and it's about how he basically works the body of his opponents. I mean, Kovalev is a case study for this. And those arms keep dropping and dropping and dropping, and finally at some point he finds an opening and catches them. He did the same with Plant as well. That was an 11th round stoppage too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like you're saying, that what you have in your tank, thanks to not having to drain yourself to lose 20, 30, 35 pounds coming into the fights, in the camp, and even in the last week, biting on lettuce and sucking on oranges, that takes a lot from you when you have to fight a 12-round championship fight with an elite fighter. And you said Bivol doesn't have to do that, because he has fought at 175 his entire career, and he has made the weight comfortably so far.
He also never looks ripped or fat. He kind of just looks like normal body, which is something kind of goes underrated in terms of fighters with high levels of stamina. Like, look at Usyk, for example. He never looked like overly ripped. He looked in decent shape, but there was a bit of flab around there. It was good, and he has probably the best gas tank in the entire sport per weight.
Yes, I mean, there's something to be said about that, right? Because
Chocolatito, for example, right?
The funny thing is, I mean, I was a rower, and I also had to weight train myself, for example, right? Because I was rowing at the lightweight category, so which meant that I had to drop, at least 15 pounds from my walking weight. Wasn't great. And the reason you look ripped is because you're fucking dehydrated. So it's not really. I know people flex on the scale, and that might seem impressive to especially outsiders, the people we call casuals. But at the end of the day, there's something to be said about that, right? If you drain yourself too much, even if you have an entire day to rehydrate, it takes something away from you. It takes something away from your tank. It takes something away from your stamina. And the examples of Bivol and Usyk, in the way they have fought so many important fights for the entire 12 rounds at a level of consistency, both within the fight and fight after fight, there's something to be commended about that. There's something to be remarked about that. There's something that's a big advantage that Bivol actually has for this fight.
And I feel whenever like people are listening who may want to bet on the fight, I think it's very important to point out a couple of things about Canelo's couple of last opponents, or all of his last few opponents. In all of his fights recently, Callum Smith tired late on in fights. Caleb Plant tired late on in fights. Billy Joe Saunders at 168 was tiring in fights. We're seeing that Danny Jacobs is a bit older. He's tiring in fights. Sergey Kovalev also, like, coming off the back-to-back training camps, was tiring in that fight with Yard. He was tiring in the fight with Alvarez. He was tiring in the fight late on. Once again, when he was out there fighting against, what's the dude's name? Andre Ward. He was tiring in both those fights. These are fighters not known to have brilliant gas tanks. And they're fighters known to capitulate late in fights, and Canelo's drowning them. But he's not drowning them in terms of high levels of volume. He's drowning them in terms of pressure, making them overwork, making them work a lot. But Bivol, you can't do that. He needs to box more against Bivol. He has to. If he goes and drowns them with pressure and big shots, Bivol will pick that apart and bounce around because it's really wide, and that's what he relies on as counterpunching. You got to make Bivol take the lead, and I think Canelo will look to do that and use his counterpunching, similar once again to the Golovkin first fight, and make Bivol go into his weaker lane, if you feel me.
Do you think, I was thinking, do you think he will use the same sort of high guard pressure, head movement pressure kind of strategy that he used against Kovalev to counter Bivol, push him back without punches, but trying to find ways to counter?
To some extent, he probably will try to, but he needs to be very careful with it because unlike Kovalev, one thing I need to say, Kovalev, for some strange reason, his jab was unbelievably weak against Canelo. He was flicking it instead of pushing it. He always has a probe stiff jab, and it's the one thing boxing fans, no matter how much they hate different like fighters and people, like whether they're Russian or whatever, or everybody commended Kovalev's jab. Even the ones that he was missing, there seemed to be nothing on them. And I don't know what to put that down to. I personally think it's the back-to-back camps and the age and the alcohol abuse. Bivol has a different type of jab. He has that rhythmic rollback push through probe, right? Which is very well timed. If you're constantly coming forward with a high guard and he keeps doing that, he's going to keep splitting that guard just like Floyd did.
It's yeah, there wasn't much sauce on Kovalev's jabs. It was a probing jab. It was a relatively consistent jab,
but flicked. It was flicked.
Yeah, it was like, you know, it was flicked. It was flickering even, right? You know, it didn't seem to be affecting and keeping Canelo off that much. Maybe it was disrupting his rhythm a little bit, but it just wasn't intimidating. And I think what people are forgetting again, because it's like a seemingly closed chapter now in Canelo's career, what really gave him trouble against Golovkin, especially in the first fight, was that fucking telephone pole jab, right? Because like you said about Bivol's jab, Golovkin too gets an entire torque. It gets his entire torque into that jab, really steps in with them, and he's consistent with it too. So someone like Bivol, who can keep it up for basically the entire fight and keep that sort of strong, extended jab on Canelo, should be able to put Canelo in some trouble, I'm assuming. I don't think it will be as easy as people imagine it. I mean, even I imagine it, I have to say, because I have said already that maybe, Canelo decision, or Canelo even a late round knockout, 11 or 12. But hey, who knows? What do you say?
I've put a couple of units. So I use the term units when I place bets instead of telling people the money. So I have a certain amount. That's a unit. I tend to bet 5 units a week. I bet a couple of units on the fight going the distance. I don't think there's going to be a stoppage in this one. I think Bivol is the most evasive guy he's fought in a while, whilst also being the fittest guy he's fought in a while. I don't know what to do in terms of the actual outcome, though, because, once again, politics reign. When I look at it, I think Canelo is a more dangerous fighter than Bivol, but I think Bivol's a better boxer. He's not a better fighter. He's a better boxer, though. To me, I think he's a tremendous boxer. And I've said this since I first seen him fight years ago in the amateurs. I said if he ever turns professional, his style, his movement, the way he moves, he will be an issue for the best fighters in the world. And I still keep that facet today. He was one of the few guys I really thought could transpire over well. And if he had have had the promotional push that maybe he needed, he probably could be. He could possibly be the undisputed champion right now at light heavyweight if the fight's materialized. I would actually make him favorite to have done that. I would pick him to beat Joe Smith, and I would pick him to beat Arthur right now. I think he would actually be the favorite to be undisputed. I think he's the best boxer in that division. And I think he's probably one of the top 4 pure boxers in the entire sport. But is boxing enough in Vegas? Is boxing enough in the Mecca against the number 1, against the best? And to be honest,
against
the way boxing wears is,
against the money man, right?
And
Canelo is the money man in the sport today.
He is. I mean, look, there's no point in me. If I go up to a fucking auction house with a Submariner I got 4 years ago, it ain't going to touch Royal Oak this week.
Right.
It's not.
So, by the way, guys, this is when we talk about these things in hypothetical ways, if it goes to the cards, if it goes the distance, what can we predict? This is really not conspiracy theory, right? Coming into this fight, by the way, when Russia's attack on Ukraine began, in a way that's actually very unusual for a lot of the boxing commissions and alphabet organizations. They came together to, in fact, boycott and exclude Russian fighters. Now, workarounds have been found and exceptions have been made to even allow this fight to happen and allow it to happen as a title fight that the WBA recognizes, that the WBA sanctions for their major title, which Dmitry Bivol holds. We are in a situation that we still can't disregard the kind of bias that Bivol might have as a Russian fighter, and I didn't even say anything yet about what Mark pointed out, which was the fact that Canelo is the money man, that he is the Las Vegas favorite, that when it comes to close fights, the decisions have gone his way. And to add to that, of course, this is something that Mark pointed out, but we didn't really underline. Canelo really has one of the best chins in the sport, right? He has some whiskers on him, to put it in another boxing term, which is basically just to say that he has great punch resistance. Right, it's impossible to break him seemingly, He has never been knocked out, of course, never really been knocked down. And the last time he was visibly hurt, I think, was when he fought against Miguel Cotto's brother, older brother, right? When was that? And I don't even remember. Maybe 10
Oh,
years.
that's years ago. You're talking a decade.
So in either case, in any way, it's hard to see him. I mean, again, you can make the argument that other moments in certain fights, against Triple G, perhaps he was also hurt, but you rarely see this guy really in trouble. A few shots, a few punches away from being knocked down or knocked out. So, you won't put your money on Bivol knocking him out. And you also know, having figured out all these different aspects of boxing politics, that it's very hard for Bivol to get a decision too. Not that, again, we are giving anyone betting advice necessarily, but those are things to keep in mind as you are trying to predict this fight. Diego, thank you for reminding everyone to upvote. Jake Brooks says Kovalev was in so many wars that he came out on off, perhaps relied on will on some of those. Yeah, I mean, again, you can see him as a broken fighter, but the point was, I think, as Mark also mentioned, that he was just 7 weeks away from a very taxing fight against Anthony Yarde, where he seemed to be punches away from being stopped. And he could have been stopped, actually. If that fight was in the UK instead of Russia, I think the ref may have stepped in. But it just didn't work out that way. Bezos says Demetrius Boo Andrade needs his fight. What do you say about that, Mark?
What's his fight? Tell me. Sorry, I'm very, very, very bad to talk to about Demetrius in terms of his fight and what he deserves and what he's earned, considering he is a two-weight world champion. He has had a very long career. He has not fought any current or former world champions. He has one of the most pathetic two-weight runs in the history of this whole sport, any multi-weight run. He is a negative fighter, and he shows up at a press conference, gets made to look like an absolute fool, and people say, Boo Boo needs his fight. I wish I could agree with you, but I can't. And I believe, even though I am not a big fond advocate of PBC, Jermall Charlo deserves that fight more than Demetrius does. I think Benavidez does. I think there are a lot of fighters out there that need that fight just as much as him, but have earned it far more.
Again, I will basically say the same thing that Mark says, coming from the viewpoint of actually liking Andrade's style, which can be described as negative. It's also very quirky. It's also, in a way, if you are nerdy about the sport, you can see a lot of interesting elements in it. I mean, the way he beat Willie Nelson, for example, which was also ages ago by now, showed just a very unorthodox, raw, and exciting fighter. But that fighter wasn't really seen until now. And my theory about it was always that he was extremely weight trained and had a hard time cutting down to 160. And now he was going to have his first fight at 168 against Zach Parker, and he had to pull out due to injury. I won't speculate, but I would like to see him at 168 before finally deciding whether he needs his fight or deserves his fight, by which we are assuming Bezos, you mean his fight against Canelo. Now, what Mark said, I will say even more explicitly. Andrade is a two-weight champion, three-time champion, out of the 3 belts that he won, 2 at 154 and 1 at 160, he has never faced a champion. He has never had a fight against an active champion. He's a 3-time champion who has never won a belt from a champion.
And Lord is being far kinder than me, even though he's being explicit, because he's rating him as a 3-time champion, because he's giving him credit for a regular title.
On paper, right? On paper, yes. I mean, again, it is a regular title, but
yeah.
you can say 3-time, you can say 2 weight, but let's split the difference and just say, like you did, he has never fought against an active champion.
No,
or
a former champion. That's the killer. That's the killer for me. Not even a former champion.
Bezos, by the way, Providence is one of my favorite cities in the entire United States, and not only on the East Coast. So I do have a slight Rhode Island bias as well myself. But anyway, even then, I can't say much of anything kind about this. Like, we are basically saying, when we say let's see Andrade versus Canelo, we are basically saying he deserves to fight against the pound for pound #1, the money man of the sport, without having fought a regular champion before in his life. It's mind-blowing, actually. As much as I like Andrade, I think he needs to pick up a belt from a real champion and have a major fight. Now, again, we can say all sorts of things about how Charlo avoided him, but that will bring us to a different discussion.
Yeah, we'll go into all of the avoiding. Then we'll start talking about how fucking Andrade avoided Maffei Korobov. We'll start talking how he avoided Jermell, not Jamal, but Jermell. People forget that one; they don't bring it up. That was, yeah. So, like
that whole debacle with Rock Nation management, etc. It was just, anyway. That's a very long conversation. Basil's. I'm actually a fan of Andrade, so
he's a fan of Andrade. I'm not.
Yeah, but emotionally speaking, I identify with Basil's, but when I take a step back and try to rationalize it, there's no way, no way to defend that matchup at this point in time. Mr. P, welcome to the channel. Thomas Broadbent, welcome back. Night Diver, hey man, and Jimmy, thank you for the upvote. Thank you, guys. Right. So we have been quite level-headed, calm, analytical, and Mark, it's very much thanks to you. But do you think you're ready to make a prediction, or will you wait until the last moment to divulge that?
I've got Canelo on points.
And that's very diplomatically put. Yes.
Lord knows me very well, so he knows. If you want, you can tell them what I'm thinking, because you actually know what I'm thinking. I know you do. I can read it on your face. Just by saying diplomatically put.
I do, but I don't also want to put words in your mouth entirely. But if you want me to,
I think Dimitri Bivol is going to win the fight and get robbed.
Okay. But by the way, again, we might be talking to mostly, watch enthusiastic audience who might not be familiar with the boxing terminology. By that, we mean basically that Bivol, for all intents and purposes, will win most of the rounds out of 12. Yet the judges will still give the decision to Canelo, as you know, if the fight goes full distance without anyone getting knocked out, it goes to the 3 judges who are scoring the fight round by round, 10-9 or 10-8.
Yes.
If it's very dominant, or if there's a knockdown, then it's 10-8.
Or a point deduction and you've won the round, or whatever. There's lots of ways of looking at it. That might be too advanced at some stage, but what I'm essentially saying is I think Bivol will in a lot of people's eyes, on the main scoring criteria for boxing, win 8 or 9 of the rounds. However, Canelo's going to load up on a lot of shots. And when you're the A side, whether some of those shots land or not, because of being the A side, and when I say A side, the boxing terminology, because like you say, I could be talking to people who don't really watch much boxing. I'm talking about, this is the guy. This is everything he does is important because he's bringing in all of the cash flow. He's bringing in all of the dollars. He's way more important. And they tend to see more things in his favor. Just like in basketball, like Kobe Bryant could get away with more things than a rookie player could because he's Kobe. He's proven he's able to do this, just like Canelo can get away with certain things. If a judge doesn't see a shot, but it looks like it may have landed, they'll think, okay, that's landed. And then on the replays, we'll see in slow-mo, because a lot of us who are really nerdy about this shit, we sit there and we do slow-mo breakdowns and pushing like all of the different rules in, and they only have one chance to score it. That's the difference. That's very important, and it's never said. And they only have one angle. Each of them only have one angle. We're watching as the fight's going around from multiple camera angles, and we have more things we are able to pick up. And because I've been to many fights, I know the difference. I know how. I went to a fight live where I thought a fighter dominated 10 rounds to 2. I watched it back on TV. I said, that's the dumbest score I've ever done in my entire life. Like, I was absolutely blown away at how retarded I was, because he lost the fight 11 rounds to 1. I just thought that the shots were landing because the other guy, when he was avoiding, kept snapping his head back on purpose, like leaning him in. So I was like, right, that's landing on the head, but it wasn't. And judges don't get that benefit from fans after fights. So,
right. And also, by the way, us fans watching it on TV also get fed at the end of each round the highlights they pick for us as well. So you see all the shots that are also filtered through someone's perspective, right? We don't even have to speculate about bias towards what, but again, there's another narrative that goes on the broadcast that might not necessarily fit into the viewpoints and even agendas, if possible, of the judges as well. Bezos is saying, you're right, guys, would like to see him get a payday. Hey, don't worry about it, man. I think that Matchroom Boxing, the zone contract, actually gave him very good paydays for the kind of opponents he has been fighting. So I don't think Andrade is really suffering for cash. Mr. P says, I can't make a prediction. I've never seen Bivol fight, to be honest. Seen all of Canelo's, and I said, you're missing out. And he said, I'll watch some highlight vids tonight. Thanks. I went to Canelo versus Miguel Cotto in 2015. Jimmy says, boxing for me is the purest form of pugilism. What do you think of De La Hoya in his prime?
Are you asking me or you?
Well, he asked me, but you can start if you like, because
I'd love to hear your take first.
Well, honestly, I think De La Hoya's public image already as a fighter, and now whatever public image he has to speak of as a promoter, really does great injustice to the kind of fighter he was. Again, we don't have to deal too much with numbers here, because when we call him what I think he is on paper, again, by some calculation, he's what, six weight champion, right?
Yep.
But then again, some of those were just WBO belts, and at that point,
WBO wasn't recognized exactly.
What wasn't really recognized as a major belt. But you push it out. Look, the guy was a real fighter. He always made an effort to fight the best. um, maybe has also been in fights where he didn't even stand a chance to win at times, like the middleweight title fight he had
Oh,
with unification he had with Bernard Hopkins was just a money fight, and he stood no chance of winning. The dare to be great angle doesn't really work there, especially when he basically robbed Felix Sturm to get his middleweight title there. The late fight he had against Pacquiao at, what was it, at 152, he had to drain himself down to at that stage, and
yes.
that was very unnecessary. I don't know if he actually believed he could win that fight. Maybe he did, and that's sometimes what makes a fighter great. That
I believe he did, because remember at the time, people still looked at Manny as small. They didn't look at him as they knew he was very good, but like Oscar probably said, "I'm too big for him." Do you get what I mean? Like, I'm too big for him, and I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, and again, that if he genuinely believed that, that's at least an aspect of what makes a fighter great, right? If again, no matter what we think, for example, speaking of robberies and contested decisions, whatever we think actually transpired on that night between Hagler and Leonard, if Sugar Ray didn't actually think that he could beat Hagler and came back from retirement to fight Marvin Hagler at middleweight, we would never have seen that greatness come out of both of them, right? And again, I strongly believe that Leonard lost that fight, but again, that's another discussion altogether. If he didn't believe himself that he could beat him, having already had serious injuries that could have and perhaps should have ended his career, being the much smaller guy, fighting against a career middleweight, someone who was basically just 160 pounds of pure energy, like a single muscle, basically. I mean, it was the shape that Hagler was in, and the way he fit that weight division was quite impressive for his time, especially. So if we didn't have that sort of mentality, looping back to De La Hoya, I think he had that mentality that makes the distinction between a good, an average to good fighter, which made him, if you ask me, a great fighter. Now, was he one of the all-time greats purely on the basis of what he accomplished in the ring? That's a very long discussion. We can dedicate an entire live stream to that. But when you combine the kind of eyes, the kind of charm, the kind of appeal he brought to the sport, it has to be recognized at some level. And it's not a coincidence that he was the guy who, in modern time, became, at least until recently, the most successful boxing promoter out of being a fighter, right? I don't think that's a coincidence, because he had that it factor, so to speak. So yeah, that's my short understanding of Elias. Someone whom I respect in the ring, and I think he was a great fighter, one of the all-time greats. I have my doubts. A case can be made, I guess, but certainly a very special icon of the sport that took things to the next level. Because again, we talk a lot about the four kings of the how do I show this?
Absolutely phenomenal.
80s. We talk and we attribute sometimes, I think wrongly, I think they would have put their mark even in an era if there were more popular heavyweights. But yeah, imagine again, like, if in the age of Americans hating on Klitschko's and despising the heavyweight division, if we didn't have Oscar de la Hoya, where would this sport be in the United States? I don't know. So we have to give De La Hoya some kind of credit beyond his talents in the ring as well.
Very, very, very nice take. Very nice take.
What do you think?
What do I think of Oscar De La Hoya?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Honest. Can you be frank and honest with me?
I'll be frank and honest. I think Oscar De La Hoya, for me, is a certified all-time great. I've gone through hundreds of records myself. Now, I'll preface this to anybody who's listening. I'm a casual. I'm gonna
Bullshit. Go ahead.
No. I am a boxing nerd, a big time boxing nerd. I do a lot of statistical things. I think any man who has a title fight record of 24 wins and 5 losses is automatically in that conversation. Whether you want to strip away 2 of his titles and call him a 4-weight champion, okay. He's a legit 4-weight champion. He's also a 4-weight lineal champion, which cannot be stripped from him. And there are only 5 people in the history of the sport to do that. And that's a special feat. A very special feat. You're talking Manny and Floyd are 2 of the others. That gives you an idea of the company he's in.
Quick interruption. Guys, lineal champion, the easiest way to describe it is you become a lineal champion in a given weight division by being the man who beat the man. So you basically beat the person who is the recognized dominant champion of that weight division to claim that title of being a lineal champion. So De La Hoya did that in 4 weight classes, even though he could also be recognized a champion in 6. In fact.
Yes. I recognize the 6 title, the 6 weight. And the reason I do that is when he picked up this title with Storm, even though I don't agree with the decision, he picked it up. And it was within the time frame when within the United States, specifically, the WBO was recognized, which is where that counted, right? And also in Germany, which is where Sturm is from. It wasn't yet recognized in Japan, so I recognized that one. Now, the 2 previous, the IBF title in the other 2 weight divisions at the time when he picked up the WBO was vacant. So there was only 3 belts available. So I recognize it. So there was 3 champions in the 3-belt era when he picked up those titles. So I recognize him as a 6-weight champion. These are things most people don't bring up. Most people don't bring that up. I really like. He has 4 wins over Hall of Famers, 4 individual Hall of Famers. Like, it's not just 4 wins over Hall of Famers, but it's 4 individuals. Which stands very, very strong in his haste. And he has fought all-time greats in Pacquiao, in Hopkins, in Floyd, in Mosley. And he's right there with them. And his fight with Floyd is one of the hardest fights of Floyd's entire career, and it was an older Oscar.
That's true.
I think also, as you prefaced, and this is my argument to him being an all-time great also, is he's iconic. Of the era, he is Golden Boy, right? He's the Golden Boy, the pretty boy. He is the Hispanic Ray Leonard, the Latino Ray Leonard. A completely different type of fighter, but that pretty boy, the big media following, the media darling, the parties, all of this stuff, which is no such thing as bad publicity, except for maybe sometimes wearing a skirt. Fishnets. Let's not get into the kitchen utensils. That's another show completely. I personally do feel Oscar is definitely an all-time great. And the reason I say this is I have him number 42 of all time. He's in my top 50 fighters of all time. And in terms of eras, he was the most important fighter. People forget this. They don't bring it up because they put it on Floyd as to why welterweights and everything became the marquee division during the Klitschko era. It wasn't Floyd. Floyd came into that, but it was already obtained that Oscar De La Hoya was the star attraction in boxing. And he put that division for the first time in its history as the biggest selling division in the sport. He was the first one to do. So that's why I'd say he is an all-time great. Maybe he's not one of the top 10, 15, 20 fighters of all time, but for the late 90s through mid-2000s, he's a complete icon. And he achieved, he was the first person ever, whether you recognize the titles or not, to have held 6 titles in different divisions where the title would later become recognized. He was the first fighter to ever do that. And by the way, there's only one other fighter to ever do that. Manny Pacquiao. Yes. Because Manny Pacquiao, people call him an 8-weight champion. Just like Oscar, he's a 6-weight alphabet title champion. They add on 2 of those lineals. So I call him an all-time great. And it's easy for me. I respect him. And I don't like him. I don't like him.
And I think, like, in that case, it's that bias working in my mind against him, in the sense, like, that's why I hesitate. Like, he's certainly a great, but I see ATG, all-time great. I think the thing that holds me back is perhaps just the fact that I'm by now completely fed up with him, especially as a promoter. So maybe I'm just biased in that way. But yeah, I mean, we agree basically on the main point, right?
He was brilliant. He was brilliant. That's the answer. We both think he was great.
And he had, again, a lot of things that were also mentioned in the chat, that he had heart, he had a great chin, that he took the fights. He became a champion in 4 to 6, no matter how you count it, divisions. And, the way Mark homed in to those specific divisions and made a case about the legitimacy of the belt he picked up, I think is unimpeachable, basically. So you might as well. And yes, look, I get very argumentative about this sometimes when people mention the CV in the sport of boxing, just purely in terms of what fights that certain fighters had to make a case that they're quite great, even though they have lost all the big.
That's fair.
I do get very argumentative, but then again, a lot of times those fighters just don't. Because look, I mean, what does a CV mean for anyone who has any sort of professional life? You put your accomplishments in your CV. You don't, as valuable as they are to you as a human being, if you know how to learn from them, you don't put your failures and losses on your CV. When it comes to a fighter that, like De La Hoya, when you have an entire tally of fights that he had against all-time greats, the ones he beat, the ones he lost to, that all adds up, of course, right? If he had only lost when he fought people like Mayweather, like Pacquiao, like Sugar Shane Mosley, then it would be another thing. But
then you look at Pernell Whitaker and you look at Julio Cesar Chavez. Even if Chavez was shot to fucking pieces, it's still a hell of a name to have.
Hey, I mean,
Ali has Archie Moore.
Macho Camacho was shot to pieces when Chavez beat him, but Chavez is recognized a great because of those kinds of wins. So, right, we have to be fair, like you said all this time. Like, you can, when we want to nitpick, I'm biased against certain fighters. So if I want to nitpick and take apart every accomplishment they had, you can always qualify it, because it's an individual sport. There are so many different factors that play into the fight. It's very easy to take away from accomplishments of some of the great fighters. But hey, sometimes there's so many accomplishments on paper, there's just no way to counter an argument against it. And De La Hoya is one of those fighters.
He is. I can put it to you like this. For me, he's an all-time great, but he's at the bottom of the all-time great table. So he's not getting the roast duck, right? He's not getting the roast duck. He's getting a glass of water and a cucumber when he comes to that table. That's what he's allowed to have. But he's still able to just sit there and have a little chat with them. He's just at the table. But he's there for me. He is. And if somebody says he's not, I respect it. I respect it.
And I hesitate to say that, honestly. For me, I'm leaning more towards that he is than not. But again, maybe it's just my vision has become blurry over the years because he's just so full of shit. Whenever he talks in public, I can't suffer him anymore. That's all. Midtown Chuckster says, where would you rank the late, great Sugar Ray Robinson on the list of all-time greats?
Well, he's up there with the roast duck.
Yeah, I think he is. You can easily call him number one. Again,
you can call him. You can, if you want to. I won't dispute you. You can say the greatest of all time attached to his name. I won't dispute it. He's not my greatest of all time, but he is. He has every right to be called that, and I will never dispute anyone who says it. Never have.
And again, we are, especially if we take the kind of broad view that we took of Oscar De La Hoya's career here. Sugar Ray Robinson has much to add to what is already a very, very incredible career in the ring. Him, the idea of a professional fighter as a businessman, the kind of influence that his style, his technique, his command of the ring, the way he planted his feet on the ring, and how he leveraged his power. All of these have been so influential for other fighters. Arguments have been made that the greatest of all times, right, Ali, styled himself as a heavyweight, having adored Sugar Ray Robinson and having watched him as he was growing up and as he was coming through the ranks. So, yeah, in a way, the man's resume again speaks for himself. You can, in hindsight, you might wish that, yeah, I somehow he won a title at light heavyweight too. But remember, at that time, right, and I'm not really talking to you here, Mark, but more towards the audience, that you don't have, what do we have now? 15 or 17 weight divisions? What is it?
17.
Divisions are what? 7, right? The original.
The original weight classes, original, if you want to get very specific, is 4. But if you want to get into what most people say is original, it's argued between 6 and 7. Okay,
6 or 7, and this guy basically dominated 147 at the time, dominated 160,
stranglehold.
Yeah, and competed at 175. Yes, he didn't win, but again,
good fight, very good fight.
It's a huge jump, especially at that particular era of
28 pounds.
Yeah, when you tally his fights that he had against other greats, the frequency with which he fought, Um, it's impossible, really. The man gave it all to the sport, so he's certainly in the conversation when one speaks of all-time greats. For me, um, I think on a given day, I can call him, the greatest of all times. But then again, there are so many I think who deserve to be counted in the same breath as well. So one shouldn't be unfair.
No, he's definitely on the pantheon.
Thomas Broadbent, thoughts on the Ricky Hatton versus Mayweather fight? I thought he was gonna ask Ricky Hatton versus Marco Antonio Barrera fight.
Um, I don't talk about that fight, Thomas.
No.
You already know this. You know this.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, I'm a boyhood Ricky Hatton fanboy from when I was a kid. The very first live fight I ever went to was Ricky Hatton picking up the title from Costa Zoo, which was very, very big, especially being a Manchester City fan, a Ricky Hatton fan. I feel I was part of history. Get that smile off your face, you smug man. I'm out at night. Hold on, I'm out at Niagara Falls yesterday, having the time of my life. I see some messages on my phone. Ha ha ha! Tough loss, bitch. Like,
I have not used any foul language, Mark. Let's clarify that. I was
okay. I'm embellishing the truth, but like I'm saying what he was thinking and what it looked like he was saying. And to be honest, what he really was implying was way harsher than what I just said.
That's true.
Like, for example, I sent him an image of the Niagara Falls saying I haven't seen the game, and he said, "Don't do it, don't jump in," which is way worse than any foul language. If we're just going to be,
but I was making actually a very football-oriented argument there. I said you just need to get rid of Pep Guardiola and his big ego, and get a real pragmatist coach who can actually win you the European Cup. That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
The future is right.
I'll just say this to Thomas. Thomas, that fight breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. Ricky, I'll say this as a fanboy, not an all-time great. Very good fighter in his day. A little bit overrated, but very fun. Very fun, very exciting, very enjoyable. Good career. Yeah, he lost to one of the greatest of the era, if not the greatest of the era.
And look, I mean, when you say overrated, I understand what you mean, but the win he had against Koscielny, which
I'll take that with me to my grave.
Which was himself quite a great fighter to boot. I think that many a fighter who people adore these days don't have a win like that in their resume, not even close. So when people are very emotionally attached to Ricky Hatton, and people really adore him, and I think mostly for the right reasons. So that might maybe get him to a level where he's overrated, but he was also a very accomplished and great fighter. Yes, maybe he didn't quite belong to the elitist of all elite welterweights, but at 140 he was a true beast, and he didn't really do himself any favors with his alter ego Fatten, right? That couldn't have helped.
You just
I mean, look, I'm not trying to be mean. We were talking about this as a problem. Like, if you pack on 50, 60 pounds between fight camps, just drinking and eating in the pub, it's going to take a toll eventually, no?
Look, whether it's Ricky Fatten, whether it's Kebab Shop Rick, whether it's double cheeseburger and fries Rick, or my personal favorite, Battered onion rings happen. Yeah, look, man ate way too much. This was a guy who used to balloon up to 230 pounds and come down to 140, and that's a 90-pound weight cut is just not feasible. It's not. It's just not feasible unless you're Rolly Romero, apparently.
No, I think Rolly genuinely, like, I actually met that guy in real life. So he actually plays his stupidity way up. And I think he trolls with a lot of his weight, scale photographs and whatever else he puts out in social media. I think it's BS. Oh, wait, sorry. I need to take this call first. Yeah. So that played a part in it. I think, I think perhaps he was never really quite cut up to be at welterweight, fighting against people like Mayweather and Pacquiao, but he was a great fighter. Midtown Chunkster says, I was privileged to have trained under an Egyptian PE instructor who was an Olympic medalist in both boxing and weightlifting and had trained with Sugar Ray Robinson. Fascinating. You're very lucky and fortunate. Neo, welcome. Reminding everyone to give a thumbs up. Thank you, everyone, by the way, for being with us, for listening. If you have been enjoying the conversation, we kept it very boxing oriented, and hey, I'm really enjoying it. So I have no intention of changing things up for the moment. Give us a like, upvote, and hey, share some of my other videos. Take a look at them. Share the link if you can on other platforms. It helps a great deal. And if you want to, in fact, encourage me in creating new content, run these sorts of live streams, we're gonna do a watch party for the Canelo Bivol fight for Saturday. You can always consider a PayPal contribution at lordhellespontv@gmail.com, lordhellespontv@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App at $LHVVV, $LHVVV. Thank you, guys. Hey, Ozzy. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
How are you doing?
This evening?
Great. I have my very good friend Mark here, who is, I think, getting a little tired of me since the topic of Manchester City and Ricky Hatton came up. So you came in just at the right time to save me, because I think he's gonna lash out soon, and it's my fault.
I don't lash out. Come on.
No, it's my fault. I did troll you.
Come on, that's the wrong Irishman.
It wasn't fair. You're having a beautiful vacation. You're having the time of your life in Canada, and I didn't have a right to spoil that. Even though
that's okay. No, you don't need to worry. Look, I don't lash out. That's lashing out is a different Irishman's job.
And even though you guys always know how to choke in the Champions League at the right moment, it wasn't right of me to point that out. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mister. I support 16 different football teams, so I can always have a winner because the team I truly support can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, because Spurs is not gonna win shit, so I have to diversify my portfolio.
Oh, I'm going to a different team to Spurs. You know what, Mr. G. Oh.
So Ozzy, what's been going on? You were on the strip today, and you were implying that you went to your AD. Perhaps, is that true?
Yeah. I had decided to take the afternoon off, and my wife got a new stroller for the baby. So one of the nicest places to test out a stroller is the strip. So at the ripe old age of 4 weeks, my daughter has now made her first trip to the strip and gotten a selfie.
And we're talking about Las Vegas, of course, Mark. If you didn't know, Aussie is based in Las Vegas.
And I wanted to visit my Rolex AD, say hi, and remind her I'm waiting on a watch. As I said, outside of the actual shop, I try not to talk business. Basically, as I said, I actually have a friendship, but sometimes you just want to watch. And while walking down from where my AD is, I decided let's go to New York, and see what Swatch has up. I heard some people been able to get them, and I got a moon swatch.
Oh yeah,
and I was able to get the pick of the litter. As far as I'm concerned, Mercury is the one that I wanted. It looks badass. Yeah, and initially, oh look, I can speak freely here. This is in private, right?
yeah. I mean, no one is listening, but yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you full AD games here. Full AD games. I've never told anyone specifics about what happens at Rolex between me and the AD, but for Swatch, the girl, I asked for the manager, Tristan. I remembered his name. I talked to him at launch, and I also had a few of the staff actually comment on my video of the launch event. So I thought that was good. That's interesting. I also sent some nice comments to Swatch events, but I'm sorry, Omega. Well, no, it's Swatch Group events, but I think Swatch Group events is really about like Omega and Longines, not so much Swatch stuff. It's not Swatch that's sponsoring the horse jumping events and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, I went there. She said we don't have any, but you should come back again at midday.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I'm probably not going to be able to make it back at midday tomorrow. I'm busy tomorrow, but whenever, it's okay. It's I don't have to have one. And I then mentioned the videos, the live stream stuff that goes, oh, you're we remember that one. We watched those videos and stuff like that. That was really good. And then she goes, actually, which one do you want? I said, I want the Mercury.
By the way, Mark is leaving. Mark, thank you so much, and thank you for being a great sport. Hey man, like you implied, I'm really just jealous of the consistent success that Manchester City has been having. So that's all I can do. I have to try to poke some humor. So thank you for indulging me, and thank you for giving us all this great boxing knowledge. So after you pointed out that you are on live streams and you have a YouTube channel and you have made videos, they basically gave you what you wanted.
Yeah. She said, let me go out the back here, and I need to talk to someone. And then I started looking at the other watches, and then she came out and says, it's all good. I just need your ID. You can only get one. And we do have the Mercury out there for you. And then we went to shoot. So like Rolex, I guess, even though I don't remember doing it, they need your ID. So they're doing that, what happens there, I don't know. She asked for my email address. I gave that. And just like at a Rolex AD, while I'm in the process of talking to the SA that I'm dealing with, who's actually giving me an allocation piece, about 4 or 5 other guys came in asking for moon swatches. and they said, no, we're out of stock. It's almost the exact same thing. And then and I said, you can do this discreetly. And she said, okay, I'll put it in the bag, and it'll be in the bag. Let's not open it up here in front of these people who are asking us stuff.
Gotta love that they're playing these games, whether the watch is under $300 or more like between 10 to 20K. right?
Mhm.
It's great.
It's true, and I gotta say it felt almost as special. It felt almost as special getting treated specially.
You're one of those masochistic people who has to suffer through the experience to feel like you are getting something special, rather than just
Yes.
like to watch. You know, you need to be.
There
You
had to
need
be a chance that I didn't get it. There had to be a chance that I didn't get it.
And this time, no sweets were involved. No Krispy
No,
Kreme.
no, I didn't have time. Neither
No
my roll AD nor the
macaron. No.
I got anything today.
Well,
Hey,
this time,
maybe next time I should. I should. And my wife didn't get a watch. She, unfortunately, we were so pressed for time. My baby started crying because she needed to be fed. So I left my wife at Crystal's. There was a nice area there in front of the Richard Mill store, with some nice chairs that could swivel around, so she could get a little bit of privacy if she angles herself right. So she was feeding my daughter, and I ran off to New York, and got it, and then ran back and eventually got to pick up my son. It was a lot more hectic than I thought it would be. Just the distances between all the casinos, like Google told me it would be like 25 minutes, and more like 45 minutes each way. So we were really running out of time.
you got what you wanted, and you got what you exactly wanted. In fact, because you said you wanted the Mercury.
Yeah. There's no two ways about it. This was my top pick. Alaska's probably second, but it's a little bit tutti frutti, as in it's a little too obvious of a, it's very unique, right? So that's fine, but at the same time, the one that I really like in my gut is definitely the Mercury. The one on paper that should be the best is this one's the Alaska project. That's more special, So this is the one that I liked the look of in my gut, not thinking about like, what is this an homage to,
Is that the one with the orange hands, or
No. It's
okay?
I
So
think
it's
someone
not
on the Discord said it's sort of more like a Dark Side of the Moon homage, maybe. So
okay.
it's really just
Not the
a lot
Ultra
of black and gray, and then the strap is a little bit sort of bronzy metallic. So it's pretty simple piece, but it's the only one that I guess doesn't look, tutti frutti. Basically, this is not going to work.
I like
There's
it.
not enough light in here. Come on, let's see if we can. Okay, let me just do my hand first. There we go, and then I get the watch in there. Not quite.
No.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so it's really just a lot of black. I like the crystal. There's a lot of deformation of light through the crystal. But what everyone's been asking, right, is like, does this bioceramic look or feel like ceramic in any way? And I would say, rather than being, I think, what was their quoted number? Like 70% ceramic, 30% castor oil. It feels like 100% plastic. To be honest, like I would not be able to discern the difference between this and plastic. It takes about 15 seconds for my webcam to refocus.
I think from what I could discern from the pictures. Again, I still didn't even get close to one. Being in Los Angeles, where we don't actually have a boutique to begin with, I'm guessing it's like you said. It feels 100% like plastic, but it does give the appearance of maybe in certain colors at least, ceramic or maybe graphene and that sort of material. It has that appearance. Whether it feels like a ceramic watch, I highly doubt that anyways.
It does have its moments, but to be honest, I'm not that familiar with plastic. Like, for example, this is the plastic from my S22 Ultra pen, so the pen that comes out of my phone. This provides some sort of, it shines as well, like a ceramic would, where, you have sort of like a lot of specular lighting, a lot of shifts in tone. So I don't know, and this is not bioceramic. I'm just saying that I think as long as it's a high-end plastic, it'll look like this, basically. why they have to emphasize ceramic part, I guess maybe because that's literally is part ceramic, maybe, right? So that's fair. It's not just marketing, but
well, that's I'm not too cynical, when it comes to marketing, as long as it has at least at
a
least a
thread.
but ideally a substantive connection to truth, right?
Yes.
For example, when when Grand Seiko prides itself for Zaratsu polishing, I don't actually mind that, because they do, when you focus on the dial and how those hands and index markers are finished, you can see what they mean and what they wish to emphasize, right? And I don't mind that they fluff it up just a little bit with marketing. When there's substance there already, you can do it. And to be fair to Swatch, rather than presenting bioceramic as something that should be stylistic, cool and fashionable, they're mostly focusing on the sustainability angle. And that's
Yeah. I mean, it's a biodegradable watch. It'll wear off on your wrist.
That's it. So the,
just a little bit of soap, it'll remove the oil component of the watch. You'll be left with 100% ceramic.
Yeah, so I don't find it to be dishonest, right? Even though it might not be what we understand in the first place when we read that bioceramic TM. It's their proprietary mix of 2 parts ceramic and 1 part plastic, but 100%, 99% BS kind of thing. But every brand does that, basically. Every brand does that. It has to be based on some truth. It has to be based on some substance. And I think there is a case to be made here in a positive way. I don't even remember at this point which one I really liked, but I do like the one. I think that's the one you have is what? Jupiter, you said?
Mercury. Jupiter's got the orange hands, and that's really cool too.
Okay, so that's what I want, I think, because yes, it is Jupiter. Yes, because Neptune was the dark blue, like kind of a navy blue one, I think.
Yeah, it was the very blue one, the one that wears off on your wrist as well.
Junior Johnson, good night, man. Thanks for dropping by, and I hope you didn't forget to upvote. Thank you for being here. Thomas says, Aussie, did your buddy get his Panda type chrono? Is he still looking?
I love you, Thomas. I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. I'm sure all of my friends would like a Panda, but I don't know of one in particular who's realistically going to get one.
Because I think, he says Panda type, so probably doesn't mean the Daytona.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think Junior is about to step into the frame and say hi.
Yeah, the kids are starting to go crazy.
It's all right, man.
I've probably got 10 minutes.
Okay. No, it's good, man. Take your time whenever you need to go. It's all right. But yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm glad you have some pull at the Swatch boutique as well. So it's not just
well, I mean, like I did. It's worth emphasizing that it's not like what I talked to Mike the Snake, that you shouldn't look at these things as luck, right? Because luck would have you going in with a very poor attitude, and he's like, what are my chances? The chances are 0. I'm going to ask, and they give me the answer I expect, But it wasn't luck that I spent hours at launch, covering the event. talking to the manager. I talked to him the day before about what preparation they were doing. And if I didn't do that, the staff wouldn't know who I am. And they did. I'm the only one who gave them that level of attention and so forth. Like, none of the stuff leading up to the actual purchase was luck. But this is the kind of situation where people are like, oh, well, that person got one. I'm not saying this is super hard to get, but I'm saying other people would point, it's like, oh, that person got one, so it must be possible to get one without purchase history or whatever, you know what I mean? But the same's true for a Rolex. Like, as a first purchase, it can be possible, but your relationship's going to have to be good, and how you get there is not luck.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing also, I give you a hard time just as a shtick, focusing on the sweets you bring, but I mean, it's without the sweet talking, so to speak, right? Without the connection you try to establish with these people who are, after all, people, human beings just like you and me, without actually having a sort of conversation that is consistent, if not necessarily frequent. You don't have to turn up, every week. You don't have to turn up certainly a few times a week. But you have to actually, like you said, you have to know these people. You have to remember their names, and you have to go there with a certain intention. That. I mean, the way, again, not to focus on Mike necessarily, but one of the things that he was saying is, like, when people made him rehearse what he was going to say, I know I won't get it. Like, that's
correct.
That's not what you should say. You might know in the back of your mind that you won't get it as a first-time customer, and that's okay. Maybe some ADs just simply won't allocate you any Rolex watch. That's fine. That's not unreasonable to predict.
Yeah.
That can't be what you say to them. You can say, well, I know how it goes these days. I know that you have probably for everything that comes to this store, you have at least 5 times the demand, that outsizes the supply. I know these things. But hey, this is my collection. This is what I want to buy. This is what I want to add to that collection in the midterm. Maybe in the long term, I will even look to get this and that. And again, I know one of your friends or associates, or even someone maybe you simply chanced upon on a forum, was insulted when they asked for a CV, basically. But hey, you can take the initiative and say, like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a lawyer, and my office is right there, or like, I'm an optometrist and my practice is there.
I mean, these are all things normal people do as they establish a friendship, a relationship. Like, not CVs, but you eventually get all this information. Now, if the AD is speeding it up with a CV because the person seemed intent on getting something quick, which is what was happening in this conversation, yeah, maybe CV is the right way to get a lot of done.
People say, Ozzy, I think people think, like, sometimes I have a axe to grind against specific people, so they don't take seriously when I say internet and social media in particular breeds sociopathic behavior. I'm not kidding, and I'm not trying to kind of send like subliminal disses to certain people. I genuinely believe in this, and I think after the lockdown, whatever little social skills people had, they've already gone out of the window and are completely forgotten. I think
I'm really bad at making proper eye contact in real life. It's, I have to really think about it.
That's okay. I think it happens to a lot of us, to the best of us sometimes.
I just wanted to add to, like, it when you're meeting someone from the first time, the goal at the end of that first conversation isn't that you're best friends, right?
Yes.
It's incremental. As long as an increment happens, that's a successful conversation.
Yeah, Thomas says, I thought you were helping a friend to find an entry watch at 5K or less. I could be mistaken.
Yes, thanks for reminding me, Thomas. I was very successful in turning my friend into a delusional fantasist. So his first real watch is probably going to be a Rolex, some way, somehow, and he's probably going to go second.
It's going to be a Rolex, you said?
Yeah, he likes the divers. He likes the Submariner. It'll be the Submariner, probably. He's tricking me as much as you.
Yeah, man, he's the star of the show. Love the little guy.
My collar's dirty from the other kid.
Social graces, you see, like the guy was taking leave and he waved us off. It's simple, but some people just don't have them. But yeah, that I think that's kind of a problem, right? If you need to be coached for an AD visit, there might be a problem. There might be a problem.
Yeah, hey man, we're not the most sociable people, us watch idiot savants, right?
It's true.
We have unrealistic expectations of people who are just working retail jobs, right? It's not.
We are delusional fantasists. Yeah.
Sorry, I got to go. Both kids are out of control. It's too much for my wife to handle. I might try and come back.
And thank you for dropping by and again sharing your mission to Mercury with us.
Yes.
Looks
and
like
thanks to everyone, the commenters. I love seeing you guys. Hey, shout out to Thomas and Jimmy, Bivol, and the rest of the crew. Jimmy, Neo, anyone else I'm forgetting? Mr. P. Okay.
Come in and out, but thank you, Ozzy. Hey guys, so we are halfway through our stream. We had a good boxing conversation. We focused a little bit on some general knowledge and some boxing history as well. We talked about some greats in Oscar de la Hoya and Sugar Ray Robinson, but we mostly assessed the upcoming Canelo versus Bivol fight that's going to take place on Saturday, and I'm going to have a viewing party here. Of course, no video or audio shared, but we will be watching the fight in the background. I'll be watching at least, and somehow sharing how I read the fight and how I call the fight as we go through it. So I look forward to that. But we basically agreed, my friend Mark and I, that it is going to be a difficult fight for Canelo. It is probably going to be much more of a difficult fight than most people predict, because he is facing someone who is not only very technically proficient and very fundamentally sound, a very skilled boxer, someone with a good jab, offensively minded, someone who truly belongs to that weight division, to the light heavyweight division, 175, which also means that he doesn't have to weight train himself, right? He doesn't have to lose, 30, 40 pounds in each fight camp as he's preparing for that fight. which means he also has great stamina. So you have someone who belongs to that weight, who has great stamina, who has fought important 12-round championship fights, even if he hasn't yet faced anyone of Canelo's level, and someone who can truly trouble Canelo for the entirety of that championship bout. 36 minutes in the ring. Of course, Canelo has a lot that speaks for him. He has had a very established record of winning against fighters who are bigger than him, who have fought on those weight divisions for much longer than he did. He knows how to how to apply pressure on a fighter consistently and do that over 12 rounds. He has a very good chin, so a very good punch resistance, which makes it quite unlikely for Canelo to be knocked out, or even knocked down for that matter. And he's also favored, right? He is the so-called A-side fighter. He is the money man. And if the fight goes the full distance, as we predict, there's a good chance that the decision will be given to him no matter what. So that would be, without giving any sort of betting advice, that would be one commonsensical and informed way of looking at that fight. Mother's Day, of course, is coming up. Jake Brooks says, I picked up a Mother's Day gift from the Real store, looked at their watches. They have decent good ones. Hey, Big Meech, Smoking Joe Farmer, how are you?
Yeah, what's going on, Lord?
Hey, welcome back, man. It's always nice to have you here. Jake Brooks, the Real, it's not the predictable place to look for watches. But to be fair, precisely because it isn't, and because they are trying to put themselves on the map, they actually have a decent selection, and they sell at prices that are not altogether unreasonable for the kind of mess of overpricing and price gouging that the secondary market is in today. So let's just quickly scroll through some of the Rolex watches they have. For example, they have a two-tone Wimbledon Datejust. Again, I don't think that's a particularly good price, but it's not so bad either. I think it says here, it comes with the papers, if not necessarily the box. Probably the full bracelet, but they have a pretty good return policy. They do have at least in-house watchmakers, specialists who check these watches. They don't have a practice of polishing watches to bits. They usually sell them in the condition that they receive them. And again, you can, if it is in your local branch, you can go in and see all the watches they have. If not, again, they have a great return policy, whether it's shipping them back or actually taking them to your nearest branch, even if the particular item is not from that branch. This is 1984 Pepsi GMT, so it's a 1675O. It comes with the service card, full bracelet, seemingly. It's a decent looking watch. You would want to examine it more closely, of course. But the way the market is now, that's not a bad price. Again, they're not too expensive, they're not too cheap. Their stock is usually plenty, if not necessarily things that are in the best condition. But yeah, here you have a two-tone sub for under 12K. 16613. This doesn't have any collateral, so it's just naked, and I think it is a little. The bracelet is a little bit short, but it will take care of both my puny wrists and Joe's as well. Right, Joe?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Willis? We got giant wrists.
Yeah, so it's not, again, it's not the most common place to look for a watch in the secondary market. To look for the Rolexes are priced reasonably, not too cheap, more or less according to the market price. When it comes to other watches, you can find actually some great deals. Yeah, that's all I can say, and in a very broad sense. But if you have seen anything specifically, Jake, and you want to point it out, you want us to examine, please just say the model, and we'll try to find it. Thomas says, I like the Pluto because Pluto is not a planet, and Omega Swatch is not a moon swatch. Nice way to look at it. Almost bought a triple date Omega, $2,500 white dial. I asked about box and papers. No box and papers, need service. Again, they have someone examine it. They usually don't service it, don't get it polished. They don't chase after papers or boxes. If it comes, they just sell it in the condition it comes to them. And sometimes there are some great deals. Possible crapshoot. A Hulk for 16,000. I think that's a great deal, no matter in what condition, unless it's like polished to bits or something. Both Omegas didn't keep time. Angelic Slayer. What was the consensus on the moon swatch? Okay, it's okay for what it is, Angelic. I think I can say that it is a plastic quartz carbon copy of the Moonwatch. What else is there to be said? I think they can be a lot of fun if they're easier to get, and if you can get them at retail price. I think they can be a lot of fun. Dirk Diggler, welcome back to the channel. Hello to you as well. How would you compare them to Joma Shop? I think actually that's a great point of comparison, Corrado. They're exactly like Joma Shop, because they just take things as it comes to them, and sell it to you at a decent deal. I had no experience with Joma Shop, but I actually talked to specifically Joe about his experience in Joma Shop, which wasn't very. Yeah, he couldn't really recommend it. Let's put it this way, right?
Yeah, only buy. It's not like you. I don't know. Buy if it's new enough. Put it that way. If it's like 2018 and newer, I'd say it's a safe bet. Yeah, you're not going to get box and papers, which is like over half your value right there. But you are getting it at a steep discount. I wouldn't buy anything under like 2007 or even 2010, honestly. But it's getting harder and harder nowadays for just about anybody. I just seen in the Tag Heuer group that I'm in on Facebook. I guess Crown and Caliber sold him a fake Tag Heuer. I took it to his Tag Heuer AD. They said, "I'm sorry, sir, this watch is not authentic. Where did you get it from?" So I find that a bit surprising. But then again, I've heard Crown and Caliber hasn't exactly got the prettiest of reputations either. So
Not necessarily. Yeah, you're right. I think at the end of the day, it, that's the thing. A lot of the mass market um, secondary dealers that we have online, that mainly concentrate on web sales. It's not like they have a very skilled, talented, and knowledgeable team who runs their business either. So the real, as unexpected as it is, perhaps can be a place just like eBay. If you know what you're looking for and if you know what you're getting, it can provide an option, and you might end up getting a great deal. But hey, there's nothing in life that's without risk. You have to take the risk to find certain things. This is the watch I think that our friend Jake Brooks was looking at, the Day Date Speedmaster white dial, and it's right under 2.5K.
You, you know what Archie would say, right? Looking at this,
Tell me.
he'd say, "Why would you buy this shitter when you can just go spend a little bit more and get the Rolex Explorer 2 Polar Dial?"
Right. Or get so he would say something like, I want to know more about your collection, but if you don't have a proper moon watch, get that rather than getting this. But I think Jake, I don't know your exact collection, but you strike me as the kind of collector who probably has already a moon watch, or at least cycled through it once.
This actually looks nice, and for the price, it's actually kind of tempting. Yeah, I get where he's coming from.
Dirk, enjoy it, man. There's no such thing as too much gin. I'm sure you can hold your liquor better than most, so you'll be just fine. You're just in the chat. This Moochie guy is way more fun. You
I'll
are the
take it.
yeah. Angelic Slayer, with vintage Rolex, is a service dial and or hands deal breaker. Okay. For me, a service dial is a no-no. Just turn around and run in the other direction. When it comes to vintage watches, the dial, the face, is at least 60% of the value. Unless it's a barnyard find, unless you are getting it literally for a song, don't buy a vintage Rolex with a service dial. Hands, we are getting at a different territory, right? I think with service hands, I don't like it. Like, I don't like super Limonova hands against a tritium dial, for example. But then again, it's easier to replace them with period correct hands if you're a stickler for it, and if you want the watch to have better market value if and when you want to get out of it, right? You can certainly take it to a watchmaker who specializes in vintage Rolex, and they can source you, hopefully not for an outrageous price, period correct hands, and you'll have a watch that's more or less in original, close to original, or period correct condition. When it comes to the dial, some appropriate dials of desirable vintage Rolex models, they are the watch, basically. They cost as much. Forget about that. Some of the desirable bezel inserts at this point cost like an entry-level watch in the vintage Rolex market. Entry-level Swiss watch, bought new. So don't get a vintage Rolex with a service dial. If the deal is good, you might consider getting something with just service hands, if you don't mind yourself. But you have to know that if you have to get out of that watch, unless again you find a buyer who just doesn't care and who is not knowledgeable enough, you'll have to get them replaced at some point. Dirk had a very nice dinner and some good drinks. I kind of envy that. This Moochie guy is way too much fun. The Speedmaster Day Date is in great shape, but with that kind of complication, it needs service, so you might have to, yeah, you will have to send it to Omega probably. And depending on what it needs, you might end up paying more than you expected, even though you think you are getting a deal. Angelic says, thanks, you're always welcome, man. You're more than welcome. You are always here supporting me. Yeah, watching the streams, watching the content, upvoting. So thank you for being here. Dirk, I took my Seamaster in for a service. It was still under warranty, but during my surf trip to Hawaii, I was getting fogging in my watch. Have you seen this before? They say 4 to 6 months. 4 to 6 months for a service?
That's reasonable, especially nowadays.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like, you know, that these big brands are really using pandemic as an excuse to just take their...
Just everybody. I mean, you call the DMV and it's like, due to COVID-19, we cannot answer the phone. It's like, fuck off.
Jeez. Yeah, again, it's if you have fogging, you know, inside the crystal, it means what it means. You know, it means that probably the gaskets needs to be checked. The entire thing might need to be overhauled in some way. You don't want, look, over long term, you don't want humidity damage in your watch. Since it's under warranty, use it. I hope you have another everyday wearer, so you won't miss your watch too much, but use that warranty. You know, don't break it by taking it to a local watchmaker, who I'm sure would be more than capable of taking it, but you'll be breaking your warranty and having
Throwing
to
away
pay
money.
So Jake Brooks says they had an HYT Indie watch. What is that? I don't even know what that is. HYT? Why? What is HYT? Oh, it's one of those. Yeah. Jesus. I don't have what to say, man. I don't know what to say.
What is this? 18,000?
Estimated retail 43,000.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on this.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not gonna say, Jake, I'm not the pontiff, so I don't have anything nasty to say about it. You don't have to suffer me vocalizing any of that. I just don't know or care about these kinds of watches. To me, yeah, they don't make sense to me. They don't mean anything to me, so I can't say anything. Dirk Diggler says, where can I give you a few bucks? I always surf with it, but this last time in Hawaii, it fogged up. I always had the knobs closed up. Yeah, it's not your fault, probably, Dirk. But sometimes, you know, these things are not perfect. You know, we don't have to talk greasy about Omega in particular, but any of these watches, even when they're new, they can have some sort of imperfection that makes them vulnerable to humidity damage, to water damage. It can happen. To address this point, I'll come back to it. Dirk says the Omega service lady was trying to play games with me. She was like, well, you let the helium release valve open. I know I'm trying to dry it up. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't your mistake, and they will cover it with warranty. If they're trying to play games, you should play along in a way and leave the watch with them and let them take care of it. Don't break your warranty for an unpleasant encounter you may have had with one person at the service center. Yes, right now we crossed the 2 hours. Guys, if you haven't upvoted and if you have been watching and content here, please upvote, share the link, spread the word. It is great help to help me get to 1,000 subscribers as I try to get monetized. Until then, Dirk, as you asked for it, you can always encourage me with a PayPal contribution at lordhellespontv@gmail.com. That's lordhellespontv@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App, which is $LHVVV, $LHVVV. So those are the two ways with which you can help. George, good evening. Good evening to you as well. It's nice to see you again. Running a little late to the show today. It's okay. As long as you drop by at least and share with us a little bit of your time and conversation, you're always welcome. 49's fine. Why does almost every new Speedy have an off-centered chronoseconds end? It's ridiculous.
Oh, the quality control on them is terrible.
Yeah, look, people have lodged a lot of very legitimate complaints about Omega in the recent years, and I think it's an object lesson where demand outsizes supply, and a brand like Omega, which has always prided itself for accuracy and precision, tries to meet that demand by ramping up production. And when you ramp up your production significantly, you are going to cut corners. I mean, look, Swiss watchmaking has a certain aura and mystique around it, which helps them to not be transparent. Honestly, that's all it does ultimately. But at the end of the day, it's not that different from any other industry. So if you have the mind to think about it, it's very simple. Omega is making way too many watches, so the quality suffers due to the quantity. Quality control lets certain things slip through that should, in an ideal world, not slip through. So it is ridiculous, but hey, you have brands like Omega, and then you have brands like Lange on the other hand of the spectrum, right? Both are very respectable brands, but they have different standards, right? One produces 6,000, less than 6,000 watches per year. Omega produces 500,000, maybe more. So it's normal. I don't want to justify it, but 49's fine. It's predictable. They have ramped up the production significantly in the last decade or so the quality has gone down.
I mean, I think the more frustrating part is, especially on the new Speedmaster, when they upped the price on them by, what was it, like $1,500, give or take, and you're getting these off-center tachymeter hands. I mean, I know Timmy's is off, mine's off. It seems like it's more often like it's a rare unicorn to get one that lined up correctly than it's not, and that you can't justify a price jump when you're gonna half-ass it like a Seiko,
That's the thing, right? With me, for example, I've been a huge fan of Seiko watches under $1,000, even under $500. But I know what I'm getting and I know what I'm spending. So when the bezel is not necessarily aligned with the outer track for the seconds, I don't really have to beat myself over it. If it does, that's just great.
Who cares? It's like a $200-$300 watch. You can live with it, you know?
That's it. That's it. So Omega needs to find ways of scaling up their production properly in a way where quality does not suffer, because they have been raising their prices significantly over the last decade as well. George Varghese, 49's Fine welcomes you too. Hope your vacation was well enjoyed. Nice to see you on here, as always. George and 49's Fine, it's lovely to see you both. Great time in Bali. Thanks for asking. Yes, and thank you for sharing with us your experiences, your memories, and also some of your watches. George says the same can be said for Hublot and Panerai. Absolutely, absolutely. Dirk says, sent you a little Dirk. You're funny, Dirk. Thank you so much. I don't exactly know what jerk off money means, but
I think you do, Lord. I think right now he's renewing his internet subscriptions right now. You know.
You're very kind, Dirk. You're very kind. I'm humbled, honestly. The fact that that I have very committed supporters, very engaged supporters in the chat. It's great for me. But the fact that you're also so generous, it means a lot. George says, have you visited the Costa Mesa Lange AD? No, I actually, the only time I was at a Lange boutique was when I was in Europe the last time. I have not actually gone to Costa Mesa. I do want to go. I do want to go. I think I'm just gonna call them, and maybe I will go next weekend, because I do want to. Yeah, George, I'm putting it off because I really want to get a Lange. That's it. I don't think they will sell me an Odysseus. I don't think they will sell me an Odysseus. But I also love the Lange one. I think I don't have a precious metal watch, so that could be great. If I had a precious metal watch already, I might have gone for the white gold, but I feel like I really want a pink gold Lange one. And I think that's a great first Lange watch. That could be one and done Lange watch too, honestly, because it's, no matter what, it's their iconic model. They have more horologically more exciting models. They have a lot of great grand complications. They have very unique watches like Zeitwerk. I actually like their sports luxury dynamic watch, of which you have both the white gold and the steel. So it's a brand that I really adore and respect. The only reason I have held off on that visit is I'm afraid that I will just slide the plastic towards them and put myself in a hole. Archive of Sorts, Mark is not completely gone yet. He says, jerk off money, subscribe to Demetrius Andrade's naughty side. Only cans. This is a boxing inside joke. He basically implies that he only fights tomato cans. I actually like the fighter, but again, I can't defend him anymore. George Varghese says, a little birdie told me that they will be getting a rose gold 1815 annual calendar this week. Oh, wow. Hey, that sounds very exciting. Let's pull that up. I mean, I think that is out of my price range, but I can always take a look at it if I'm so privileged.
That's what a credit card's for, Lord.
Hey, let me pull it up, and you tell me if I mean, yes, maybe, but hey, I only use credit cards when I can actually pay it at the end of the month, and this is a little above my monthly earnings, I have to say.
That's euros. What the fuck's that in American? Wouldn't that be what, 48?
Yeah, maybe
48,000?
50. Yeah, let's see. I don't know how I ended up on the European website actually. 8 and 15. Wait, how long? Und so, ne? Go here. Okay, this should be from 18, 15. Yeah, I think we should have just converted. Sorry about that, guys. What is it? 45,500, right?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's gonna be about 50.
Oh no, it's 48. You're right. You were
48?
right. 48. 48K USD.
All right, so split it up on 2 credit cards. Be like Archie. Yeah, they got a little bit of consumer debt that you got to work on for a few years.
Hey, look, I mean, people do this on YouTube all the time, but at least they have monetized channels where they can beg for the difference. I can't do that yet, so this will have to wait. But yeah, I think, look, George, let me be frank and honest with you. I would love an 1815 chronograph.
No, get this shitter off the screen.
I know. Yeah, I would love the 1815 chronograph in any configuration. Honestly, I don't even care. You know, white gold with black dial, pink gold with black, pink gold with silver, whichever. Like flyback, manual wind. Let's pull this one up. Jesus Christ, isn't it beautiful?
I think those hands are what really bring the whole thing together. They could have matched their hands with the case, but instead they went bold with it. Looks fantastic.
Yeah. The heat blued alpha style, I think it's incredible. And you know, I just want to also let our audience take a quick look at the movement too. I never understand why it's not easily available on their website, by the way, because really it's more than half the watch. Oh no, this is the datograph. I want the 1815 chronograph. Where is it?
This is the type of watch that you could say, you know, fuck you to the Paddock fanboys. You can take a piss on them and they can't do anything about it. This is a fuck you to the punters that got money.
I think, like, you know, if you, the only person who gets away in the Archieverse, in Archie's face, owning a Lange is bondage and discipline, as you know, because he is otherwise so nice to him. Otherwise, like you said, you know, it destroys its competition. You know, it can be seen as disrespectful to the Patek fans, for sure. It's like a whole urban landscape, man. It must be exciting to take a look at this movement while the chronograph starts running. And that's swan neck balance wheel with the floral decorations, the entire, you know, German silver movement with the yellowish hue.
Kind of reminds me of a nucleus. I know that's a weird thing to say, but like the living cells of a nucleus. That's what it kind of reminds me of.
Jimmy says, looking at the movement in Lange is mesmerizing. So many layers and exquisite detail, unreal. Dirk says, I grew up in Costa Mesa. Wow, man. Great. Yeah, Southern California is great, man. I have been to that AD, says George, and they're the best, super nice and easy to deal with. Would highly recommend them. Here's the thing. I don't know. Is it about how they interview and choose the people? Is it about how they train the people? In Richemont brands, like at Vacheron Constantin, at Gégé Lecoutre, at Lange, in California, in Europe, in different locations on the world, I've never been treated in a way that made me feel disgusted, and that's kind of definitive of my experience with a lot of authorized dealers of late. Like the way a lot of Rolex ADs treat you with a certain disdain, the way certain Patek ADs, not necessarily their own salons, but some of the authorized dealers treat you. It really makes you feel less than, even though you shouldn't. I've never had that experience with any of these brands, and I do have a reverso, but I never bought anything from their authorized dealers or boutiques. Yet I'm always treated like an informed customer, and they're always there to teach you more, to help you more. If you, even with a watch that you didn't buy from them, to pull out the service information and tell you every little detail, of course, without divulging personal information on any part. Yes, Dirk Riegler. All in the South Coast Plaza. Tudor is opening this summer. I'm on day 4 with no chewing tobacco. Stay strong, my man. This is harder to quit more than cocaine. All right, I get the reference now, Dirk. Yeah, we're all prone to that. Less on the cocaine part, but certainly I have had my share of tobacco addiction and jerk off. Jake says, congrats, Dirk. Stay strong. Not easy after gin. Yeah, the alcohol and tobacco just flow together, so it's very hard. For real, I was such a douchebag. It's hard. I went searching in my empty cans for any leftover tobacco. Nothing. You got it. You only have like a day or two before you're starting to forget about it. It's hard to kick off the addiction, but really time is the best of healers, man. It's gonna be much better in a few days. Dirk says the Rolex AD treated me like shit in South Coast Plaza in Costa Mesa. I thought getting a Rolex was going to be this big deal, but I was lucky to get a water. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is about them, honestly.
It's like a hit and miss with them, isn't it? Like you either get like the fairly decent ones, or like you get the fucking worst of the worst.
The thing is with, again, I can say this about Richemont because I almost always went to boutiques, because the Vacheron in Beverly Hills, Gégé Lecoutre in Beverly Hills, Lange in London, these are actually run by Richemont, by the company. So they have a certain control over them. But Rolex doesn't have that kind of control over their authorized dealers, right? So like you said, you might get the greatest experience of your life because it's an authorized dealer that gets decent allocation. They like you and they're family business, and they really have this tradition of treating their customers right and with respect, even when they can't get them exactly the watch they want, it might be a great experience. And it might be that you're in the middle of a very busy metropolitan center that gets a lot of tourists, and they just sell their watches to the highest bidder with whatever backdoor deal they accomplish. And anyone who passes by and steps in as the average customer is treated with disdain. And Rolex has no control over either one of them, good or bad. Dirk says, I think this Rolex AD at Costa Mesa, I think it might be Tournon, actually. He says it was either Mayors or Watches of Switzerland. I think it's Tournon, the Rolex AD at Costa Mesa, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to shit on them without making sure, but we can double check. George says, Dirk, keep it up. Trust me when I say oral cancer is the worst form of cancer. Yeah. Any form of cancer is pretty bad, but oral must be pretty difficult. Beat up a pillow or a punching bag. Rage out for a minute, then cut the next drink with half water. Then only water. Great advice from our friends. Dirk, stay strong. Angelic Slayer, when you got a kid, it changes you a bit. Yeah, must be great. I look forward to having kids in the future, I hope. What do you think, Joe? Are you interested in having kids?
Fuck no. No offense, but I like my sleep. Fuck me dead. I like my freedom.
Guys, this is a family friendly show. Don't take it the wrong way, but yeah, we respect Smokin' Joe's opinion. 49's Fine says, I went to an AD in Boston and wore my Datejust 41 that I got from another AD. I expressed interest in a Milgauss and a Batgirl. I told the Boston AD that the DJ41 was a gift from my aunt. Now I own the Milgauss. So what do I tell the Boston AD?
You say, thanks, that's wicked awesome. Can I buy you some Red Sox tickets?
Jesus. That's supposed to be the Boston accent, your best impression.
I butchered the Boston accent. Like I need like the perfect fucking lingo for it. Like I lost my car keys. I lost my cat keys. There we go.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your pants, that's for sure. But the way 49 said it, I think he got the Milgauss from another AD or the secondary market as well. That's what he's trying to tell, I think. Well, now you say, hey, still go to them with your Datejust and not your Milgauss, and say you changed your mind about the Milgauss and you just want a Batgirl if they can come through with it. I think that's what you say. And find another watch that you might be interested in getting from them, and say, I want the Batgirl first, and maybe after that I'm thinking about getting this other watch, like let's say Sea Dweller 43, right? Something like that. Angelic says, I tried a few times when my kids were young. I stopped drinking when I had my first kid, though. Yeah, quitting habits. Derek says, LOL, stay single. Yeah, this is for you, Joe. Jimmy says, no filter on Joe. We love you this way. Yeah. Laughing my butt off me for a nice fun. Forget about it. Jimmy says, get in the car. Get in the car. Yeah.
Get in the car and bag a Yui.
PSDS equals pierced ears. Boston accent, Escorta says. Welcome to the channel, by the way, Escorta. I don't see you here much, but it's lovely to see you in the chat. And guys, the Link is there, by the way. The link is pinned if you want to join the conversation. But I dropped it in one more time at any rate. Dirk says, I really want the Milgauss. I think Milgauss is really not appreciated enough. I actually like that one. Four Nines Fine says, yes, I will try that. Thank you, Four Nines. And don't tell the Boston AD, George says, just tell them thank you when you get anything from them. Dirk says, Joe is fun. Jake Brooks says, you don't sell watches? Maybe you could sell me some earrings. All of a sudden, they have watches. Yeah. Thomas says, my aunt is now my uncle, and I would like to get him a Daytona as a gift. Well, it's my favorite conversation topic. I think Daytona is the best Rolex and perhaps best unisex sports watch. Convince me otherwise. I think that's it's a great watch, whether it's your aunt or uncle. That would be a great gift for them, for sure. George, so buy two of them. LMAO, Thomas, thank you. Escorto, you're welcome. Which Milgauss? 49's fine. Full on John, 118239, rare cherry dial day date. Have you ever seen it? Let's check it out. 118239, right?
I was just thinking, 49s could be like Mathis, and because Mathis has two date just, he's trying to offload one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I had not seen this because I would not have imagined, honestly. Full on John, and welcome back. I always thought this color was like grape or something. So this is what pulled up when I looked at cherry. I think this is it. Oh, this is a nice color, actually. I mean, I was expecting something more like a red apple rather than an eggplant. Not to be confused with eggplant emoji.
Had to take it there, huh?
But I kind of like it, actually. I think, at least in this white gold combination, it actually pops quite nicely. I don't know how it would look with yellow gold if they have it. Interestingly, all the examples they have on the web, at least. Now I see it, because some smart guy on Facebook had the idea of actually taking the picture next to cherries, and there is a point. Here's a point. You can see it. Yeah. I like it. Does this bring eggplant emoji for you, Big Meech?
I can't say that. I can't say that it does. No.
It's not the kind of watch that tickles your pickle?
Ooh, no, can't say. No. Actually, no, BS aside, actually, it is pretty dope, honestly.
Honestly, I like it, actually, with white gold. I don't know how it would look with yellow gold. I don't know if I would like it.
I feel like it would be too much.
But I think, like, for a Day 36, especially, this is a very attractive combination. Yeah, I had never seen it, Full on John, so thank you for bringing it up, but I like it. I'm sure you can do something with one of them, one of the watches that you're asking the Boston AD. Dirk says 10 times better than the other panelists. Lord, you know more about watches than anyone, seriously, but if it's fun, your channel will blow up. Yeah, Dirk, you're coming at me with this. Look, the reason I have other panelists is because they bring different things out of me, and uh, I like it when they're like Joe and they can actually steal the show, right? That's the only point of having panelists. So they can bring something else. They can be funnier than I am. They can be more informed than I am. They can be experts in different fields and bring in that sort of knowledge, like Mark did earlier in the chat, earlier in our conversation, with his boxing knowledge, which is unmatched on YouTube, I have to say. So I try to involve different kinds of people. Whether I know more about watches than anyone, that's doubtful. I do know quite a big deal, but I won't compare it with anyone else. I have my own spin. And whenever I have great panelists, then it becomes 10 times better, because then it becomes something more than dry knowledge. Right, so I appreciate you, Joe. That's my way of saying thank you if it was too roundabout, but thank you.
I'm floored. I mean, don't thank me. I'm just here for the leads. The leads.
You are? Well, drop the link to your channel. If I didn't even know that you have something that you can lead people into, but if you do, you're more than welcome to take all my leads, because it might be just 10 people, but that they are 10 solid, committed, and engaged fans. You can hardly find better on YouTube.
For sure.
Four Nice Fine says, yeah, exactly. I catch your drift. Two of them is better than one. Yeah, if you can get two steel stunners instead of one, that'll be great. Escorto Four Nice Fine says, I have the Milgauss Black dial, which is the one that I wanted. I've seen the dials. Thomas says, Four Nights Fine brings out the eggplant emoji. I always wanted that one, the black one. Escorto says, although the Z Blue is cool too. Full On John says, I want it so bad. Yeah, look, you have good taste, man. I don't
Black
always.
dial is extremely underrated too. It's very underrated, in my opinion.
For the Milgauss? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, look, I like them all. I know that the white is now discontinued and very desirable. I like that. I think out of the three, I still like the Z Blue the best. But look, I mean, a Rolex with a black dial, it's gonna age well in either case, that's for sure. But yeah, when it comes to this watch, man, I like day dates. I don't love them all, but this is the one that hits the right spot. Dirk says, serious question. I know you're a Jewish man, but is it hard for you to support German watchmakers, especially watchmakers that were producing during World War II? It's not. It's not. I mean, look, I always take it case by case basis. To me, when I meet people, it's an issue of character, right? I don't care in the first place about their ethnic origin, about their country, about the language they speak, how well they speak. That I don't care about any of these details. That the character of the person always reveals itself sooner or later. So I treat people on a case-by-case basis. And same thing with watchmakers, same thing with all the other German brands, right? If they have a particularly malicious history, I take a step back for sure. But I don't have an eternal, burning hatred or resentment towards any people, any corporations, or any countries, or any ethnic groups. So to me, if I find out that someone who is leading Lange today, who is important in their structure, has some sort of Nazi or neo-Nazi leanings, I will probably change my mind. But as it stands, I like Lange, and it's only a secondary thing that they happen to be from Germany. But it is a very unique take on high horology. So it does matter that they're from Germany, but to me, that's not a bad thing. Thomas says the aubergine dials are cool. Yeah, that's why I said purple all the time. I don't know why people took it that way. That's what I meant with eggplant. It's a very attractive color. 49's Fine says, thanks to Escorto, I would take either. Obviously was leaning more towards the black, between black and Z blue. Cool photo, great dial color. Dirk says, for me, it would be hard. It could be. Look, I mean, it is an ethical question. I wouldn't hold it against anyone to think about something like that. And if there is something that makes you doubt that decision, if there are current political entanglements that's difficult for you to co-sign and support, I understand that. And in that case too, the ethnicity doesn't matter. National origin doesn't matter. Like, Nazis don't just come from Germany. They might come from Ireland and live in Venice, for all you know. Jake Brooks says, I think those are whole paycheck cherries. Whole Foods, yeah. I like that maroon. Thomas says, did you see the time and tide yellow day date? We'll come back to that. George says, why do you suppose that Rolex has more exotic dials on the day date 36 as opposed to day date 40? I think it's simple, George. Day date 36 is an older model, so they had more time to experiment all these different dials on them. And as you know, Daytona is a late bloomer, and now they have the Sky Dweller and other watches as well, where they introduce different exotic dials. But it used to be the Datejusts and mostly the day dates that got the most experimental, most exotic, most precious dials in the Rolex lineup in the past. So day date 36, being the prestige and older model, obviously has a longer history where they had all these different dial options. That used to be the watch that you could order in any way you want, basically. Any dial you want, any writing on the day wheel that you want, any language that is available. You just had more customizing options compared to any other part of the Rolex lineup.
I also feel like jokes aside here, and I know I joke kind of repetitively on this, but 36 mil is now considered to be the new ladies 28, and I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Ladies do like more options from their dials, and I think that's why 36 models in general, whether we're talking Rolex, Omega, or whatever, have more dial colors because they are more accommodating for the ladies. Gives them more of an option and gives them more of a creativity style to play with.
No, you're right. You're right. That's what 49 Fine also thought, because 36 can be for women too, right? That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me as well, right? It's more unisex, I guess, than the 40. Although again, women like wearing bigger and bigger watches as time passes, but I'll stick to my line still, that it's the older model.
And for sure.
Day date used to be prestige, so it was the most customizable. But hey, yeah, day date 36 is more wearable in a unisex fashion than day date 40. That's very reasonable, commonsensical thing to say. Does Messi score as much as Ronaldo? Not as much, but hey, look, I mean, Messi and Ronaldo, both of them, whichever one you prefer, they have both defined more than a decade in football, and they were so outperforming consistently everyone else. I think it was a privilege for most of us to watch them at the same time, more or less, and in competition. For Nice Fine says, I already sent Big Meech some jerk off money through PayPal. See, you're already stealing my leads,
Exactly.
Meech.
Thank you. I've just resubscribed my memberships.
Thank you. Thank you, For Nice Fine. You can send me money for other purposes, For Nice Fine, if you so wish. No, you have already sent me some, and whenever
Mike
you
still got that clogged toilet going on there, so I mean, hint, hint.
For Nines, it's your money. You decide what to do. If you want to support Big Meech instead of me, that's fine. And you have supported me quite a lot already. And whenever you feel I deserve it, feel free. Dirk Diggler says, I think Milgauss will be discontinued within 3 years. Rolex is always very hesitant to discontinue lines entirely. I think, again, they will update it. I don't think it will go away. That's my guess. What do you think, John?
Yeah, this has been talked about a lot here for the past 4 years. First it was the Air King, then it was Milgauss, and back and forth. I don't see them dumping the Milgauss, but I see them doing essentially, and people are going to call it lazy, I know, but I see them doing essentially what they did with the Air King, slimming it up, giving it the crown guards, and calling it a day. I think the Milgauss is going to be here to stay. Will we see various different dial options? I think so. In the next 10, 20 years, I think the Z Blue will eventually be kind of tossed out and replaced with something else, and the Black Dial as well. But yeah, I think the Milgauss in general is going to always remain somewhat active on the roster.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, Rolex is such a, such an industrial giant that it's they're not very nimble, right? They hardly discontinue altogether any of these lines, but I think there can be some changes in the dials. They might, just like they did to the Air King, they might update the case, or just like they did to Submariner, in the transition to Submariner 41. It can happen. By the way, thank you again for the PayPal contribution, guys. People have been really generous this time around, and I really, really appreciate it. I do put a lot of attention, care, and effort into my content, whether it's live streams or shorter videos. So I do appreciate your encouragement and your support. And again, the PayPal address is lordhellespontv@gmail.com. That's lordhellespontv@gmail.com. And I have a Cash App, which is $LHVVV, $LHVVV, which I just keep up because that's how Joe contributes to the Clogged Toilet Fund.
Send money now.
George, take care. It's always lovely to have you here. BC just dropped by. Dirk, we were talking about Glashütte and the German companies. Dirk says, my grandfather was in World War II. He hated German people until he died earlier this year. I used to tell him, Grams, you can't call them this or that. He was shot in the head in Bastogne and obviously lived. Look, I mean, he fought in the war, right? And he, as you're describing it, he went through a very traumatic near-death experience. And in that case, I understand the kind of emotional baggage and damage that he had to carry over the years. That's a different situation. I have a lot of weight of memories, different issues of persecution and discrimination that I faced in my life, but I never tried to hold it against an entire group of people. And I'm not a survivor of the Holocaust myself, even though I have members of my family who were completely rotted out. But yeah, you have to move on. You have to move forward. You have to try to turn some of this, at least generations later, into something positive, at least for yourself and for your people. And I think that is the only way to heal, first and foremost, for yourself. Thomas says the day date / president was a big deal. This 36 is coming back for the discerning male buyer. Hey, I know it is an acquired taste, but I do have an Instagram account, and the very last thing I posted was actually Harrison Ford and his Datejust 36, of course, on a Jubilee bracelet with the Buckley dial. And it felt so good because, if you know, you know, Tuscany Rose said, I like it. And Tuscany Rose is John Buckley. John Buckley is the watchmaker who basically gave, watchmaker and dealer who gave the name to the so-called Buckley dial for the day dates and Datejusts. So he approves of Harrison Ford and his classically sized Datejust. Do you think is Harrison Ford in a denim shirt and a 36 millimeter Datejust masculine enough for you, Joe?
Yeah, I'd reckon so. Maybe depends.
Hey, Big George, how are you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Welcome. Jake Brooks says, finest generation. Yes, the people who suffered through the Second World War and fought for freedom are certainly very honorable people. Bring back that white dial. Wait, which one was that? Oh, the Milgauss white dial. My grandfather lied about his age. He was jumping into France at 16. He went into boot camp at 16. Wow. Big Meech had to jump off, but he will be back later. Amazing story. God bless your grandfather, Dirk, and his service for freedom. I too had a grandfather from the World War II era. He was a prisoner of war for a time. We are all blessed for their sacrifice. Dirk says, with Rolex, all the punters want Daytona, Subbies, or GMT, so I can see them taking resources away from Milgauss in order to meet demand for the heavy hitters. That's not how Rolex operates, Dirk, for better or worse. Sometimes I wish it did, but they have a very specific way of making quite a distinct number, quite a discrete number of every model, right? Because they could have discontinued a lot of the smaller sized women's watches, but they still have them. So I don't know if they would simply discontinue Milgauss to produce some more desirable models. I don't think so.
No, I would have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, Jimmy's grandfather too used to tell me some stories. How they used to hide potatoes under barracks to eat was a very different time. They truly lived. Dirk says, I bet you have some crazy stories from your family. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a lot of pain and suffering and loss, but a lot of also stories of survival and persistence and remaking. His grandfather was also in Korea as well. Cool tidbits, Bezos. Was it Pacific or Europe? For sure, this whole thing that small watches are for quote-unquote girls is total BS. Guys can rock a small watch, no problem. It doesn't even look small, that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, this is Harrison Ford. He's wearing a classic Datejust, what we call vintage these days. And it looks good.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have a 34 millimeter date that I wear from time. No, Rolex Precision. Sorry, not date. And you could get away with wearing a 34 millimeter Rolex because it wears differently than other 34 millimeter watches.
Right. Absolutely. Thomas says very 80s. Yeah. Did you wake up Mike? He was Derek, I'm being nice to Mike. I'm being nice to Mike the Snake. I think he's great. He's great. Jimmy says his grandfather fought in Europe. I heard the Americans captured from the Japanese. It was brutal. I can't imagine it, Jimmy says. What is the smallest size you would rock out with? The smallest size that I would rock out with, honestly, I was trying out some Air Kings, older Air Kings with 34 millimeter. They wore really nicely. And this wasn't too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago by now. But I can certainly see myself wearing a 34 millimeter Oyster case. But in my current collection, my smallest watch is my 5-digit 16014 Datejust. And I like wearing it on its Jubilee bracelet, jingly jangly, or on a leather band, and it wears well. I don't have a pretty big wrist, I have to tell you that, but I think it wears as nicely as my GMT wears, as my GMT Master 2 wears, as my Sub wears. But it's a different watch. It's a different vibe. It's a different occasion sometimes.
Yeah, agreed. The smallest watch that I wear, that I have in my collection, I have my father's Musty Cartier tank, and it's not a large
Mhm.
watch, and it looks good on my hand. It's personal preference.
Yeah. 449's fine. Thoughts on 11652? This is, of course, the first Daytona with the in-house movement, right? Pre-ceramic. You know what? With the white dial, especially, I prefer this to the ceramic. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that.
There I disagree with you, Lord. On the pre-ceramic, I prefer the black dials. I think it looks better with the metal, with the bezel.
Okay. Honestly, if I were to get a Daytona, again, it's not my favorite Rolex. It's not my favorite watch by any means. I would probably try to get a Zenith one, so 16520, like a white dial. I think I can live with that. And again, George and I were talking about it behind the scenes because he just jumped on as I was closing here, and this topic came up basically. And I was saying, legibility be damned. I don't care. If I have a Daytona, I'm not gonna be using it for the chronograph or for time, for that matter.
Yeah, and I'm the person who likes contrast. That's why I prefer the black dial on this model.
I understand. For me, why I'm saying this, again, part of it is just trolling. Of course I care, but for me also, a Daytona like especially a 5-digit or 6-digit Daytona pre-ceramic, for me it's like a complicated dress watch as well, right? And with a white dial.
Definitely a complicated dress watch, because if you could get a side profile of the Daytona, you
Mhm.
could see that it wears like it's got the case of like a day a
Yeah.
day just, because they're sculpted. It's just not a slab like the Submariner. It's not as much as a tool watch as the other ones. It crosses the lines of dress watch.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say, with the dimensions and everything, and with the white dial, as beautiful as the black one looks, my preference would be for the white, especially for that, right? Because I would say that on the Oyster or on a leather band, that could be like a very nice special occasion dress watch as well. Very classy, I think. Chronos, manual or automatic, with a white dial, white metal, I think can be really subtle, elegant, but also quite masculine. So I like it quite a bit, actually. But yeah, I think, hey man, my money is always on the pre-ceramic 4.9's fine. So you know it. I approve of this. Um, 34 is no problem. Jimmy agrees. Holy S. Dirk says you're not the smallest guy. 34 millimeter. Look, Dirk, you're right, but I always look like, sometimes when I'm in watch boutiques, etc., people say like, you want to use the mirror or something, and I usually don't. Like, I don't care about how it looks in terms of my entire proportion. I care mostly about how it looks on my wrist. So yes, you might be right. Like, I'm 6'1", so I'm not really the smallest guy. I'm thin, but I'm tall. So 34 might be a small watch for me, smaller watch. But again, I don't mind that. I think, on my wrist it looks fine. And I do have skinny wrists. And, for the right occasion, I think that's not actually too small. Smallest I can use, Dirk says, is 39. Yeah, I mean, that's why 39 and 40 is usually the great compromise for most people involved. Older
Definitely.
older turnographs are supporty yet distinctive. 4.9's Fine says Daytona definitely has dress watch vibes. Same case as 40 millimeter, half Roman, half Arabic numerals. That's what they call the California dial. Yeah, Escorto. Yes. I have not seen. Wait, did you? What is the most recent Rolex model that you saw with the California dial?
The only last I just seen bubble backs. I've never really seen. I'm not really too much on the vintage side, but I past the 40s. Really didn't see any California dials.
I think by 60s they were basically gone from the Rolex lineup. It is mostly a bubble back thing. Again, I'll check my reference books. I'm speaking off the top of my mind, off the dome right now, but I think it was mostly a bubble back thing. I know that like some of the Rolex produced Panerais have a California dial as well.
Yeah, they somebody just came out with a California dial. Oh yeah, Timex came out with a California dial.
Yeah, but for Rolex, I think by the 60s, I don't think there was anything in.
No, definitely by the 60s they was gone. I'm trying to think if there was maybe like maybe an Explorer or something like that in the 50s that had a California dial, but I know that the reason why they're called California dials is because there was a particular person, a watchmaker in California, who was redoing the dial, and that was a specialty. So they got hence the term California dials, because whenever these dials was redone, oh, where'd you get them done? California, and that's how the name came about.
Cool. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said Rolex made Panerai with California dial.
Yeah, that's basically the one that I'm kind of a little bit familiar with. That's got a Rolex movement in there.
Yep. A pretty nice movement
So
too.
that's basically that's Egler.
Mm-hmm.
But they basically, they kind of basically was in house because Egler basically had a contract that they only could make movements for Rolex,
Mm-hmm.
and then just Rolex just bought them out, and I think it wasn't too long ago, Lord. I think in the '90s or around the year 2000 they bought them out.
A lot happened around 2000. That's when Richemont bought all these, big guns. But you're right. It's 2004 when Rolex outright bought Egla
Yeah,
to make
people
in-house.
would think that it was much earlier, but no, it wasn't.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing that tidbit, by the way, about the California dial. That's great. Neo has some great advice. Have you considered eating more ice cream? I have a sweet tooth, man. That's my weak. How can I say this? That's my soft belly, so to speak, right? Um, yeah, man, that's my weakness. But I don't like myself too much when I gain weight. I'm now around 175, and I'm still far from my fighting weight, so to speak. But I used to be over 200 pounds, and it just felt like too much weight to carry for my body. And I had all sorts of health problems. So
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm way, when I used to be at a good weight, that's where I used to be around 200 pounds, and that's where some people are comfortable at that weight. Everybody's different. And I moved to Florida and put on massive weight. I must be one of the only people who went from New York to Florida and gained weight. It's like, how do you do that? The food is terrible here in Florida compared to New York, and that's just the way life is. But now I'm eating
yeah.
right, and trying to get back on eating healthier and lose the weight.
That's the most important thing, eating healthy, being healthy, and whatever allows you to do that and still enjoy some of the small pleasures we have in life, like eating ice cream, like eating chips and salsa, as I've been doing tonight. And I know I'm gonna get flack for it, Big George, because one of my viewers very rightly told me that I was chewing gum a couple of shows ago, and that really embarrassed me. But I was too hungry today, so I had to put something in my belly.
Yeah, you gotta eat. You gotta eat, man.
Escorto says, thanks, panel, for the history about it. Neo says, California dials were put on watches to showcase the two options available, but it allowed salespeople to only need one watch in California. That sounds like an interesting origin story, too.
Yeah, it's part of it. He's right. He's right.
Dirk Diggler says the ice cream assists chewing tobacco. Yeah, that it is my bad habit, so to speak.
You know who else has got a similar type of story too, Lord? The older Accutrons. Now, the older Accutrons, when they first came out, those were like one of the first battery powered watches. They came out like 1960. So what they did was they put a display model on the outside of stores, basically, to show the movement, to show everything. And people was asking so much about the display model that they was just sending the watches bare without a dial and just the hands, the showcase models, and that's how it took off.
Ah, I see. Thomas says, I don't think they issued many Rolex direct Cali dials. The Cali dials were retrofit before, pardon me, Rolex became control freaks. That's aligns with the story that George shared for sure. Neo says, eat and enjoy Cubanos. Dirk Diggler, doing intermittent fasting, you will drop weight fast. I've seen a lot of benefits from that. Also, I think honestly, for clarity of mind and my energy levels, usually I used to eat a lot when I woke up when I was younger. And I feel like that really brings you down in a few hours. If you can kind of skip whatever you eat for breakfast and just drink coffee first and have a lunch, I think that serves me better anyway. So I don't care about the lost weight or whatever else, but it just gives me more clarity of mind early in the morning to do that.
Yeah, there's nothing like a cup of coffee in the morning. You can't. When I was younger, I didn't understand it, but now that I'm in my mid-30s, I fully understand why you need a cup of coffee in the morning.
George, I mean, look, I first came to this country. The first big city that I discovered was Philly, but the first place that I lived was New York City. And for the 13 years I lived there, I was pretty much bagel in the morning kind of guy.
Oh yeah, bagel in the morning. Have your coffee.
Either with cream cheese or peanut butter. At that time, I wasn't vegan either.
I never had a bagel with peanut butter, Lord. That's a good one.
It's very good. And you don't even need to add anything else, right? Of course, I mean, I respect people who put jam and whatever, but that's in the South they call something like that like a choker sandwich. In Philly too, actually, because it's like it kind of sticks to your throat, your bone, and your ribs basically, and it's very filling. And it can really, with a good cup of coffee, it can get you through most of the day.
Oh yeah, food like that sticks to your bones.
Chewing gum is better than sleeping on the job. You got it. Space View Neo says intermittent fasting is horrible if you want to build muscle, and really losing weight is as simple as calories in, calories out. That's always the thing, man. Neo, it's very simple, but you basically start eating healthy, controlling your portions, and you become more active, whether that's just taking so many steps during the day or taking walks, running, elliptical machine, biking, cycling, I don't know, whatever you want to do, exercise and healthy eating and portion control will get you quite far, actually. And not everyone has the same metabolism. Let's not forget that. But this is very simply and beautifully said. Sometimes it's hard to apply in your actual life. I understand that, but thank you for sharing it, Nia.
I've noticed that once you start changing your eating habits, the first week is the roughest. Once you start eating healthy for about a week and it becomes second nature to you, and you don't have basically it's like your body detoxes from all the crap in your body, and it doesn't really bother you anymore.
Neo says coffee, donuts, cigarettes. I want to buy some quality bands. What do you recommend for good bands? I'm guessing you're saying straps, leather bands, kind of thing. Analog Shift has a good selection of leather bands. Not that I'm sponsored by them, so I don't know, but I got them. I got some stuff from them in the past, and they're not too bad. They're owned by Watches of Switzerland, by the way, just so you know. since you said before that you may not have been treated well in a they sell when they have a good selection. They sell watches as well, especially vintage watches, but they have decent straps. Um, Look, I mean, leather straps. It's like a rabbit hole. You know, they have some. There's a lot of bespoke and very great quality stuff. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
customization. A lot of great stuff that you can buy off the rack as well. Um, so you just have to choose your budget and then search on that basis. Coffee, donuts, cigarettes.
It depends what kind of strap you're looking for too, because like if you're looking for like racing straps, the ones with the holes in there, um, Speedle has some good straps. If you're looking for bespoke, Aaron Bespoke is like one of the bigger ones out there. He's expensive, but his quality, he's very, very good. He has a very good reputation. There's it just depends what kind of watch strap are you looking for, because there's so many. It's like asking what oil do you use in your car.
Oh,
What's the best?
Evan says, agree, much more energy with intermittent. Yeah, again, I don't follow it to a T, but I just drink coffee in the first instance, and then I get hungry around midday, 12, 1, and I start eating. Four Nice Fine says, sent you some money. Thank you, Four Nice Fine. Thank you, I really appreciate it. Jake says, try not to eat food that passed through your driver's car window.
That's good advice.
Peanut butter is candy. You're right. I try to choose, no sugar added versions, but even then, it can be very fattening and very heavy. But for someone like me who is vegan and who is trying to supplement in any way I can, some protein, I eat a lot of peanut butter. I eat a lot of legumes. Sometimes I use like vegan protein powder, like chocolate flavored stuff. And yeah, some of it is added sugar, but I try my best. Jake Brooks says muscle burns fat, cocaine, coffee, ice cream, cigs, and booze, not anymore. Four Nights Fine. Take care, man. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. I appreciate you and all your support. Jake says, what's for lunch, Dirk? Neo says, I love my Hodinky racing strap. Hodinky is a little overpriced, but they do have quality straps. I have to admit that. And Dirk says, I just had red meat. Guys, we are just now over 3 hours. I think we will go around, for about another 20 minutes. Thank you for...
I think that's fair, Lord.
Thank you for all the questions, your interaction, and all the great information that you have been bringing in the chat. I've had some great, I have the great privilege of a lot of great panelists tonight. Mark was here, breaking his vacation in Canada to share his boxing knowledge with us. Aussie Expat was here. Smoking Joe Farmer was here. Big George is here. All these great people really helped me run the show, and all of you in the chat too help me generate content. So thank you so much. If you have been enjoying it, please upvote. And if you want to encourage me to run these live streams and create more new and original content, I will have my everyday philosophy session in the morning tomorrow. And I'm also planning to put out some content on the Reverso and on the Omani dial Rolexes with the cross daggers with the Khanjar in the next few days. So if you want to encourage me in putting out that kind of content, feel free to contribute on PayPal, which is lordhellespontv@gmail.com, lordhellespontv@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App, which is $LHVVV, $LHVVV. We have another 20 minutes or so. So we're not signing off yet. but thank you for being here. George, thank you.
Hey, no problem, man. It's always good talking shop with you.
Thank you, man. It's my pleasure. Neo says, I just finished my yearly 2-month vegan cycle. Vegan protein tastes like ish. Man, I try even not to, right? You know, I sometimes take some powder stuff, like mix it into my coffee. I drink a lot of coffee as well, which is not great. So I sometimes put it in my afternoon coffee. But I don't really have vegan protein. You know, I just have a lot of lentils. I have a lot of beans. I have a lot of legumes. I have other legumes. I have peanut butter. I try not to have anything else, but sometimes I do eat vegan junk food, which is not bad, but not that great for you either. Dirk says it was a fun jerk off session. Get your mind out of the gutter, Dirk. My wrists are tired. Man.
Whoa.
Jake says, on the Traeger or Weber? Oh yeah, this is about the meat. Hey man, you don't ask me. I don't know anything about that. Dirk already calls it a night, I think. Yeah, if you're still here, Dirk, good night. We have about 15 more minutes. I got a Rectex smoker for the meat, but then I sear it in my cast iron for a few min each side with butter.
Everything's better in a cast iron skillet.
Probably.
It
Yeah,
is.
even tofu is better on a cast iron skillet.
It's good. It's good. You know,
Um,
the older they are, the better.
That's true. Neo says, I eat a lot of beans, lentils, etc. They are filling. Absolutely. Absolutely. George, I didn't really ask you this time. You usually come with a topic at hand. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about tonight?
No topic at hand. It's the usual stuff that's been going on in the market. Basically, you see people trying to catch a falling knife with the watch market.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to time the bottom. You know, I'm on these Moda chats a lot. It's interesting to see. I just passed time, and you're basically seeing you're seeing Pepsis for around 22, 23, but those are getting sold quick. Those are low prices. You're seeing not new ceramic Daytonas, but a year or two old. They're at the $40,000 mark, or they'll price them like 500 below the $40,000, like 39.5. So
Yeah.
things are you know, pretty low, and then you know it's everything that would happen with the stock market today. It's very volatile. People don't know what's going to happen. So
Can you show us your new watch, or do you have any pictures that you can share with us? I know you showed it on Archie's show, but I don't know if everyone got the chance
the
to.
quorum, yeah. Give me 1 second. I have it on the table.
Of course. So Neo says, Dirk, make yourself some herb butter. I make some with herbs from my yard and freeze it. Yummy. And Jake says, nice.
I'll be right back. It's in the closet.
Of course. And Jake says about the smoked and seared meat that Dirk made. Nice. I bet it hit the spot.
Okay, I'm back.
All right.
Let me I got it in. I got to tell you about eBay. Once they authenticate things,
Yeah.
they send it in a nice little box. They give you paperwork.
Oh yeah, this was. Oh, that's great too. This is a very great conversation, guys. Now eBay has its own authentication service, and I didn't realize that. I know you bought it from eBay, but I didn't realize that you got
Yeah,
it.
they had it authenticated.
That it had that service. So that's the eBay box. Yeah.
Yep. I'll show you the paperwork. Here's the watch. Oh, it's upside down.
Yeah.
It's 925 case, quorum. It's from the 70s. We don't know exactly when the date is, but there's I don't know if you can see it, but there's a hallmark on there.
Mm-hmm.
They do that for silver watches. It's it wears nice. The only problem that I have with it's got a custom strap on there. It's very wide. It's about 30 millimeters wide. I have to get another strap for it because it's too short for me. I could wear it, but it's pretty it's on the first hole. But look what they give you. I don't mind because it's an old watch, but the serial numbers and things like that. See, it says Quorum Buckingham manual. Tells you case material silver.
Mm.
Yeah.
What's so the buckle is still Quorum? Is it the original buckle?
The buckle is original Quorum.
Ah, and what's the lug width if you want to get?
It's 30 or 32. I haven't measured it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Oh wow, that's really wide.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me put the phone down so I could take it off the cushion.
Of course.
Yeah, if you even seen here, I'll show you. It's so tight on the cushion that it basically busted the cushion. You see, it's coming apart already.
Yeah.
The band is very short, so it was custom made to somebody who had a small wrist. But I've been wearing it these past couple of days. It's a nice watch, really is comfortable. It wears good on the wrist. But yeah, I believe that's the numbers are in French.
Let me see.
I don't know if you could see too clear.
It doesn't really focus.
Hold on, let me try wiping my camera. Maybe the grease.
It is a white boy. I can see. I can certainly see it being 30 millimeter lug width.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, you see 6. You could see a little bit.
Yeah,
not the best because it's the phone, but yeah, it's
It is. It is.
I'll show you the case back.
In French,
Buckingham.
It's French and a nice script.
Yeah. That's why I you see Buckinghams, you always see them with gold dials or silver dials. Now, if people ain't familiar with the Buckingham, Elvis, I like it because Elvis Presley used to wear. He daily wore a Buckingham for many years, and he gave it to one of his crew. So it was very interesting. Similar, not the exact same watch, but very similar.
I did not know that.
Yep. Elvis Presley wore Quorum Buckingham. So pretty interesting. I sold off my I had a few Seikos that I wasn't wearing no more, and they was just sitting in the closet, and I figured, you know what, let me sell those off and I'll just buy one decent watch that I'll get some use out of.
And I know you got a very good deal on this.
Yeah, I told you I paid 15 for it. Basically, after tax and everything, came out to almost 1,600.
Yeah, and Bezos says, I like that it came with the original buckle. Thomas says, I like it. And Escorto says, I just sent the PayPal. I enjoyed the show. Thank you, Escorto. I really appreciate you.
But yeah, it's a fun watch. It really is. I'm probably gonna have to go bespoke on the band because I'm not gonna find. You'll find a 30 millimeter wide strap, but you're not gonna find the taper. It tapers down to like 18 or 20 millimeters, so it's tough.
Um, yes, thank you, Escorto, for the PayPal, and great catching up in the dungeon too. Whenever it usually doesn't fit my sleeping schedule, but I try to drop by sometimes midday when it's open. When Dodger is there, I try. Seared portobello mushrooms, Thomas says. Neo says, I started flipping my watches with peace of mind since they started to authenticate. Before that, I was always scared of the buyer. Yeah, baby. It's Thomas says, Sammy Davis and Dean, Lapis style. And Neo says Elvis Presley also wore a cape.
Well, I'm a fan of the King. I'm a fan.
Yeah, they just come out with a biopic for
They're coming out with it. It didn't come out yet. Another watch that he wore was the Hamilton Ventura, which is a very oddly shaped watch. It looks kind of like imagine the Star Trek symbol, but on its side a little bit.
I want
Very
to pull
space age watch.
Hamilton Ventura. I don't know. Oh yeah, now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he wore one of those. They make modern ones now. They make vintage. I believe it's the first electric watch. Yeah, I like Nietzsche stuff, Lord.
Yeah, you like this one as well?
The older. I like the vintage Venturas. That's a newer one.
This is new too, I think. Let's see. Maybe I should just search for vintage.
Yeah. Now, these are watches like I went to they have a flea market over here in the city on the weekends. And he basically ran across almost the same watch but with a silver dial. They're 10 karat plated for like $150 working and everything. So you could get lucky sometimes and still find these watches, and they do pretty good money on eBay. They do around depends on the condition and how complete it is, but anywhere between 1,000 to 2,500, you could find these.
Basil's Bezel says pizza slice. Jake Brooks says
yeah, definitely pizza slice.
Triangle and Neo sends a pizza slice emoji. Hey, well, I mean, look, I like a few odd-shaped watches, but yeah, I think the most radical I go is really rectangle or cushion shaped. This is
that's basically where I go to. I like Elvis, but I like the Buckingham and the story that he daily wore it. That's one of the reasons why I looked for one, and I like. I also own. I've showed it to you before. I think my father's Quorum 2020.
No,
the coin.
I do like the Quorum that you just got for sure. This one I'm not so hot on, but I do like the Quorum Buckingham that you just got. Jake Brooks says, I'm going to buy the Hamilton. Good luck, man.
Yeah, they're out there. Listen, if you're looking for Hamilton, buy it on a deal. Don't that's the type of watch you buy on a deal. You don't buy, you don't really pay top dollar for, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They don't really hold monetary value so much. There's not, but you're not buying it for that. You buy it because you like the watch. But money's money. You don't want to get hurt.
Of course. All right, guys, we're closing very soon. If you enjoyed the show, please upvote if you haven't done so already. Check out some of my other content. Spread the word far and wide. Share the link on other platforms. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm halfway there. I'm more than halfway there. So if you help me with that, that's always very much appreciated. And you have been helping me a great deal in the chat already, with directing the conversation, questions, all the information that you share. I've had a great panel today. We talked about boxing, we talked about watches, we talked about, again, a bunch of stuff, life, history, family history, diet. It's always great where we have a watch-focused, watch-related, but meaningful conversations around life. I really, really enjoy that. Thank you, everyone. If you want to make a contribution, my PayPal address is there, which is lordhellespontv@gmail.com, lordhellespontv@gmail.com at PayPal. And I also have a Cash App, which is $LHVVV, $LHVVV. Any last words, Big George?
I think we pretty much covered it, but everybody listen, support Lord. He's one of the better channels out there. Definitely. He's good people. And, I really do, we got to get you monetized, man. We got to get you over the hump. So everybody help out, spread the word. And that's really it.
Hey, George, it's, you're helping a great deal already, coming here almost on a daily basis, almost every night, and you're a great panelist. So I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that. That's kind words for you to say, Lord, but it's no big deal. I like coming on. I like talking shop with you. You're good people.
Thank you for your kind words as well. I really, really appreciate it. Jake, Thomas, Neo, Bezos, all Escorto, all the great people in the chat, Dirk, love you all, 49's fine, Evan, and everyone else whose name I may have missed. Now I don't just want to go through all the chat, but thank you for everyone who has contributed to the conversation, who has contributed on PayPal and other platforms, who has liked the stream, who has been watching my content. It gets me one step closer to my goal every day, and I really appreciate it for that. And I really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. And until then, have fun. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
And we're almost there at the weekend. Take care, guys.